Chapter 191. Mr. Coyote, where are we going next? Are we still going to the place where you hid the extraction tools? The high-spirited Long Yu personally carried Artoria and left Terminal T2 with Aardwolf. He then asked Aardwolf. No, I didn't expect the filth to have not invaded Artoria's body, so when Artoria wakes up, she will return to her original appearance. I don't need to do anything anymore. Then, Mr. Coyote, come back to Yangjing City with us. Long Yu invited politely. No, I'm not going with you. Aardwolf shook his head bitterly, and then touched his chest. Although I resisted the control of the filth just now, the filth is still hidden in my body. I may become another person at any time. Me going to Yangjing City is a time bomb for you guys. And I don't want to stay with humans. I'd rather live more freely in the wild. Goodbye, brave and powerful swordbearers. If Artoria wakes up, just tell her that I, Coyote, am dead. Let her return to the human world alone and live a normal life. After saying this very sentimental sentence, Coyote took firm steps and walked away in another direction. What a pitiful person. Long Yu looked at Coyote's receding figure and sighed. He then commanded his teammates to start looking for the raider in Terminal T1. Long Yu was very excited to be able to ride such a monster. Stop, this is the place. Coyote rushed out of the car and then disappeared into the ruins of a collapsed high-rise. Before Coyote left, he specifically told Guhan and the others to wait here for him to go down and get the tools. There was no danger in the ruins, and it would be a waste of Coyote's time to bring a person along. A few minutes later, Coyote quickly returned to the raider with a handbag. Hurry up and drive, I'm going to save Artoria. I'm afraid I can't drive for a while. Steel Centipede shrugged his shoulders. Just now, Hong Yu went down to solve her personal problem. If she doesn't come back, I don't have the guts to drive. After a few minutes, Hong Yu, who had gone to the toilet, finally returned to the car. The Predator started the engine again, made a turn, and sped off in the opposite direction. Magic Pen, how much longer do we have before Yuan Ku catches up? Guhan asked Magic Pen. The most important thing right now was time. Just now, Aardwolf went to get the tools and Hong Yu went to the toilet. They had wasted a lot of time. About an hour and 20 minutes left. Magic Pen looked at the time and added, this is the most time we have. Maybe we only have 1 hour and 10 minutes. Steel Centipede, can you drive a little faster? Increase the speed. Guhan wanted to make a fuss about Steel Centipede's speed, but Aardwolf strongly objected. We can't speed up. The process of removing the filth can't be too bumpy. In fact, the speed is already too fast. If we don't slow down, the interior of the car won't be stable. I can't remove the filth for Artoria. Guhan was a little anxious. There wasn't enough time, and they still had to slow down. How could they do that? However, this wasn't the only problem. Soon, a new problem came looking for them. Military Governor, we're running out of diesel. Because of the detour, we can't reach the previous refueling point. We have to find a new refueling point. Steel Centipede glanced at the fuel gauge and suddenly remembered that he and his team seemed to have completely ignored the problem of fuel. I know. Faced with all kinds of problems, Guhan became calmer. Forget it. Steel Centipede, slow down first and ensure that Aardwolf can remove the filth from Artoria's body smoothly. Magic Pen, do you have the most detailed map of the vicinity of Xianyang Airport? I want to see if there is any other way. Magic Pen passed a map to Ji Yuhan, but he was helpless. Although this map was detailed, it also marked the location of many gas stations. But at this moment, the nearest refueling station to Guhan's position was more than a 40-minute drive away, and they also needed to take an extra detour. It was impossible to reach there. Guhan's eyes swept back and forth between the safe point and his current position in a straight line, trying to find a large enterprise, a large construction project, or an excavator school. Because these places required a large number of construction vehicles, they would have their own fuel depot. Perhaps they could find the needed diesel in there. Unfortunately, there was no such place. But Guhan did not despair. He still carefully looked at every possible place where diesel could be found. At this time, Guhan found that the straight line to the safe point intersected with an expressway called Yongxian Expressway. Guhan suddenly remembered that there seemed to be a rest area not far from the expressway, and these rest areas often had their own refueling stations. Such refueling stations would not be marked on the map because they were included in the icon of the rest area. Ji Han hurriedly looked around and searched along the Yongxian Highway. Indeed, not too far away, he found a rest area named Xianyang Rest Area. That location wasn't too far away from the highway, so it was within an acceptable range. So Guhan immediately pointed the location to Steel Centipede, who was driving, and asked him to reach there as soon as possible. After that, Guhan returned to the back seat. At this time, Aardwolf had completed the preparatory work for removing the filth and had begun the removal work. Aardwolf took out a very complicated-looking instrument from the handbag he brought back. The two ends were small, but there were two round, ball-like objects in the middle. It looked like a start generator commonly seen in chemistry laboratories. After taking out the instrument, Aardwolf took out a knife from his handbag. In front of everyone's surprised eyes, he did not hesitate to cut his wrist. Blood-red blood flowed out of the artery in Aardwolf's wrist. Aardwolf hurriedly opened the upper opening of the instrument and let his blood flow from his wrist into the first ball bottle of the instrument. The moment the blood flowed into the instrument, the first ball bottle of the instrument emitted a red light, and the whole instrument began to vibrate. 5 seconds after the first ball bottle flashed, the second ball bottle also began to flash, but it was flashing with a golden light. The two ball bottles began to vibrate at the same time, like the bucket of a washing machine. Blood was still flowing from Aardwolf's wrist into the ball bottle, and it seemed that there would be no end to it. Aardwolf's face was getting paler and paler. Just when Guhan and others thought that Aardwolf was going to drain his blood, the ball bottle suddenly made a beeping sound. Then, the red light was the first to go out, followed by the golden light. But after all the light disappeared, the whole instrument began to flash with a light blue light again. Aardwolf breathed a sigh of relief and moved his wrist away. Then, he quickly took out a small bottle filled with powder from his handbag and sprinkled the powder on the wound on his wrist. The wound immediately healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and soon, no one could tell that there was a huge wound there. "I don't have any strength left." Aardwolf, who had finished healing his wound, fell weakly on the seat. "If only this driver could drive more steadily. I wouldn't have wasted so much blood," Aardwolf complained weakly. Although Steel Centipede had slowed down the car and tried to drive as smoothly as possible, the road was still very bumpy. In such a bumpy situation, of course, Aardwolf's blood could not flow smoothly into the instrument. As the instrument shook, his blood constantly dripped to the ground. A rough calculation showed that at least 2/3 of his blood had been wasted. Aardwolf, who had lost 2/3 of his blood for no reason, was naturally so weak that he did not even have the strength to straighten his body. When the blue light of the instrument disappears, open the opening at the bottom of the instrument and inject the separated serum into the hole in Artoria's chest. Then, the filth in her body will be removed. Aardwolf spent a lot of effort saying this, then closed his eyes weakly and fainted on the seat. When Steel Centipede drove the raider to the rest area of Xianyang, the blue light of the instrument still did not disappear. Guhan left Yusiu in the car to take care of the unconscious Aardwolf and Artoria, while the rest of them began to search for usable diesel in the gas station. Luck was on their side. There was also a tanker parked at the gas station, and there was enough diesel in it for the raider to reach the first safe point. Magic Pen and Steel Centipede were busy filling the tank with diesel, while Guhan and Hongyu ran to the top of the ruins of the gas station to monitor the surroundings. If another Godzilla appeared, it would be interesting. Fortunately, Godzilla didn't come out to mess things up this time, and all the missions were completed smoothly. But when Guhan and Steel Centipede returned to the raider, they were surprised to find that Aardwolf, who had been unconscious, had disappeared. He left on his own. Yusiu looked as if it had nothing to do with her. He said that after injecting the serum into Artoria, she would return to normal and he would not have to worry about her anymore. He did not want to live in the human world, so he left directly and told us not to look for him. He also said that he would silently bless us and that he would be a partner of justice and so on. I guess he wanted to leave too. After all, he had achieved his goal. Guhan did not seem surprised by Aardwolf's departure. He took out the instrument he carried with him. At this time, the blue light emitted by the instrument had disappeared, which meant that the separation of the serum had been completed. Guhan shook the instrument full of serum and said with a faint smile, "It's time to see the effect of this serum." Chapter 192. Captain, there's a Godzilla behind us. It's already discovered us and is closing in on us, Shui Lei Xing, who was refueling at the gas station, reported. Just like Jiu Han's team last time, when they were refueling at this gas station, a Godzilla attacked them as well. This is going to be troublesome. Long Yu felt that this Godzilla was a bit troublesome. It wasn't that they couldn't beat this Godzilla. It was just a meteor-level Yuan Ku, so it wasn't a big problem for Long Yu's team. The problem was that Godzilla's HP was too high, so it would take a lot of time to kill it. If the universe-level Yuan Ku caught up to them, they would be dead. Up until now, no famed sword-tier swordsman or swordsman team had been able to kill a universe-level Yuan Ku at full health without using a powerful item. Captain, the Hung Mountain Sword Faction's information didn't mention this Godzilla at all. They must have tampered with the information to trick us, Monian said angrily. In his opinion, this was definitely a trap set up by the Hung Mountain Sword Faction. No, the Hung Mountain Sword Faction doesn't have the guts to lie to us about such a small detail. Even if they really encountered a Godzilla, they wouldn't be able to defeat it. It's 60% complete, so this is probably the first time this Godzilla has appeared in the instance dungeon. Long Yu bit his knuckles. It's very likely that we perfectly saved Artoria from the filth, so the system spawned this Godzilla. Alright, even if the Hung Mountain Sword Faction didn't lie to us, what should we do against this Godzilla? Monian's words made Long Yu fall silent. He didn't know how to quickly kill this Godzilla. From this, it could be seen that Long Yu was still a bit weaker than Guhan. At the very least, Guhan immediately thought of a plan to blind Godzilla so that it couldn't chase him without wasting too much time. What's going on? Is there anything I can help you with? Suddenly, a calm female voice rang in Long Yu's ears. Long Yu turned his head and saw Artoria in a white wedding gown. She was holding her chest as she walked out of the Marauders, one step at a time. At this moment, Artoria had completely woken up. Under Aardwolf's guidance, Merlin's magic removal scroll did not contaminate Artoria. Soon after leaving Xianyang Airport, Artoria woke up in the back of the Marauders. When they saw Long Yu and the others, they almost got into a fight. Thanks to Long Yu's sharp tongue, Artoria believed that they had accepted Aardwolf's request to rescue her back to Yangjing City. However, Artoria, who had gone through many hardships, was in a very bad state. Every step she took seemed to require a lot of strength, so Long Yu had arranged for the graceful lady to take care of her and let her sit at the back to rest. Unexpectedly, at this time, she walked out on her own. It's no big deal. There's a Godzilla coming over. I'm just planning how to get rid of this trouble. Dragon Feather replied as if everything was a piece of cake. Godzilla? Artoria frowned slightly. Don't underestimate Godzilla's strength. Even if I were at my peak, it would be quite troublesome to deal with him. Once I'm entangled with you and the Nazi King catches up, everything will be over. No problem. With our team here, this Godzilla. Long Yu still wanted to show an attitude that Godzilla was nothing to him. This was also very rare for Long Yu. He would rarely say things that deliberately looked down on his opponents. Help me by 5 minutes. Suddenly, Artoria said. What? Long Yu looked at Artoria in confusion. Help me by 5 minutes. As long as you can hold Godzilla for 5 minutes, I can get rid of this trouble. After saying that, a light flashed in Artoria's hand, and a long sword with a blue handle and a white blade appeared out of thin air. Artoria held the hilt with both hands and stabbed the sword vertically into the soil under her feet. Then, she closed her eyes and said no more. At the same time, the wedding dress on her body began to flutter even though there was no wind. It was as if there was a stream of air stirring in her body. This is... Long Yu remembered one of Artoria's abilities from the information he had obtained. He immediately gathered his teammates through the team channel and said, "Everyone, use half of your strength and hold off this Godzilla for 5 minutes. On a road full of wreckage, abandoned buildings, and small trees overgrown with weeds, a raider was racing at full speed. It was Guhan's team. Because they had changed to a different gas station, it seemed that Godzilla did not come out to cause trouble for them. However, Guhan and the others in the car were not relaxed because they did not have much time left. It had been an hour and 30 minutes since they left Xianyang Airport. There were less than 10 minutes left until the 1 hour and 40 minutes that Yuan Ku would need to catch up to them. Steel Centipede, how long until we reach safety? Can we get there in 10 minutes? Guhan asked Steel Centipede, who was driving. Military Governor, even if you kill me, don't even think about getting there in 10 minutes. Don't even think about 20 minutes. I need at least 25 minutes. Because they had to go to Aardwolf's base and take a small detour to the gas station in the rest area, Guhan and the others had wasted about 40 minutes more than the last time. This amount of time couldn't be found anywhere else. There's no other way. Then we can only fight. Magic Brush, you've fought with this U-level Yuan Ku before. Tell me, do you think we can block his attack? Guhan turned to Magic Brush and asked. Hearing Guhan's words, Magic Brush's face stiffened. It was obvious that he had recalled something very unpleasant. He is the Nazi king of the 10 kings of the Martyr's Palace. He is the youngest of the 10 kings. Legend has it that he killed millions of Jews in ancient times and is the leader of all the Nazis. His attacks are as fast and as sharp as lightning. Admiral, I'll be frank with you. Don't even think about defeating the Nazi king. There's no way we can defeat him. Last time, he took less than a minute to seriously injure all of our blade masters. Fortunately, the escape point is in this marauder. Otherwise, our party would be banned from the game for another 3 days. It's too late. We will definitely meet him. There's not enough time. Guhan shook his head. Magic Brush opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but at this time, Hongyu shouted again, Military Governor, she's awake. Artoria, she's awake. Where am I? Who are you? After being injected with the serum, the black stains on Artoria's white wedding dress gradually faded and withered. When they finally disappeared completely, Artoria finally woke up from her long coma. This is our raider. We are a team of swordbearers from Yangjing City. We were entrusted by Aardwolf to rescue you and bring you back to Yangjing City. Ji Yuhan leaped to Artoria's side, held her arm, and helped her sit on the seat. Why should I believe you? Why should I believe that you aren't from the Martyr's Palace? Artoria looked at Guhan and the others cautiously. Her eyes were full of distrust. Anyone in a completely unfamiliar environment would behave like this in front of a complete stranger. We have no reason to lie to you. You were in the hands of the Martyr's Palace at the time. I don't think the Martyr's Palace would go through so much trouble to find a group of swordbearers like us to put on a show for you. Guhan smiled. Trust us. If we were really from the Martyr's Palace, we would have handed you over to them while you were unconscious. Why would we need to run away with you? You are running away now. Artoria looked out the window, her beautiful face showing traces of worry. I can feel a familiar force chasing us from behind. If my intuition is correct, it should be an old friend of mine. Yes, we are running away. The Nazi king is chasing us from behind, Guhan answered honestly. The Nazi king, it really is him. Artoria's expression turned even uglier. Where are you running to now? This should still be Shaanxi province. You can't possibly think that you can escape to Yangjing City like this. Of course not. We have a safe point ahead that can block out intuition. Unfortunately, even if it only takes 25 minutes to reach this safe point, we won't be able to get in before the Nazi king. My fate is really terrible. I was finally rescued by you, but now I have to run away like this, doomed to failure. Artoria took a deep breath. Don't run anymore. Prepare for battle. With me here, the Nazi king is not without a fight. Artoria struggled to get up from her seat, indicating that she was willing to fight. Guhan also took a deep breath and ordered Steel Centipede, stop. Steel Centipede, stop. Let's see how powerful the Nazi king is. 5 minutes later, a tank roared wildly and appeared behind Guhan and the others. If there were any military enthusiasts here, they would definitely recognize this tank as the famous German Tiger tank from World War II. However, this Tiger tank's speed was too astonishing. It was actually galloping at a speed of 200 kilometers per hour. This was definitely not the speed of an ordinary tank. This tank was, of course, not an ordinary Tiger tank. It was the universal weapon of Adolf Hitler, one of the 10 kings of the Martyrs' Palace. It was said to be the most technologically advanced universal weapon on Earth, the Third Reich of Germany. Trash. A savage voice exploded from within the Third Reich of Germany. Chapter 193. Long time no see, Mr. Hitler. Your voice is still as unique as ever. Artoria slowly walked out of the marauders with the sword in the stone in her hand. Her pure white wedding dress fluttered in the wind. The wind was very naughty. Most of the time, it lifted Artoria's skirt, but the innermost part of the absolute territory could not be seen clearly. King Arthur, you're awake. The speeding Tiger tank came to an abrupt halt at a speed of 200 kilometers per hour. There wasn't even a single brake mark. It had simply and abruptly come to a halt, as though it had completely ignored the concept of inertia. That's right, Mr. Hitler. Sorry to disappoint you. I'm awake. Artoria raised the sword in the stone in her hand. Mr. Hitler, you have been defeated by my sword in the stone 7 times in a row. Do you want to do it again? This time, I, who is not controlled by filth, will not let you live. Beautiful Miss Artoria, your white dress is still so beautiful. Hitler suddenly began to praise Artoria's dress in the Third Reich. However, he suddenly changed his tone and spoke in a serious and mocking tone. Miss Artoria, do you know what your descendant, George VI, looked like when he faced me? Hitler said, seemingly immersed in the memories of the past. That little guy was just like you. He knew that the glory of the empire had come to an end. He knew that under the iron heel of the Third Reich, Britain would no longer exist. But he still stood in front of me and used his ridiculous mouth to declare war on me. This is really a very interesting thing. If it weren't for Stalin and Roosevelt, your empire would have become a part of the Third Reich of Germany. What do you think of calling it the province of England? But the British Empire still won in the end. And you, Mr. Hitler, could only swallow the last bullet in your underground fortress. Artoria sneered. No, Miss Artoria. In fact, I've been living in Huaxia since then. You would never have guessed that I spent the rest of my life in Turpan. It's such a nice place, if only it was cooler. Unfortunately, there was a stinky old man who was sent to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs who knew me and brought me to Beijing. In the end, I was not buried under the grape trellis in Turpan. What a pity. Fortunately, when I was about to die, I saw the founding father of the Celestial Empire once. He's really an amazing leader, someone that even I admire. Unfortunately, if he had led the revolution of the Third Reich, it would have been a completely different future. If only his way of governing the country was a little more brilliant. These 2 kings, who had a grudge against each other, were talking about the most confidential historical truth. Unfortunately, among the 6 raiders, 5 of them did not understand what kind of shocking secret was contained in the conversation between Artoria and Hitler. Only Jiyu Han listened with great interest and was left speechless. Although many later generations thought that Hitler was not dead, they never imagined that he was hiding in Turpan. It was said that Hitler's confidant, Himmler, had sent 2 expeditions deep into the heart of Tibet. At that time, he said that he needed to find the Earth's axis to change history. Now that he thought about it, perhaps the real reason was that he needed to find a suitable escape route to help Hitler. Hitler actually managed to escape to Turpan and met the founding father of the Celestial Empire. If this news was announced in the 21st century, who knew how many Chinese media would go crazy? Mr. Hitler, are you done with your nonsense? My sword in the stone can no longer wait to defeat you and your Third German Reich once again. Artoria said coldly. Her body emitted a monstrous aura as if she was being blown by a blower. As you wish, beautiful Miss Artoria. If my Third Reich can't even defeat a seriously injured King Arthur, then I, Hitler, will have no face to continue being the Nazi king. As usual, I'll use my 1000mm cannon to have a plate of German breakfast. After saying that, the cannons of the 2 Tiger tanks began to rotate. As the cannons rotated at high speed, new steel plates extended out from the barrel. The entire cannon gradually became thicker and larger in a very sci-fi fashion. In the end, it became a super 1000mm cannon with a diameter of 1 meter. My God, a 1000mm cannon mounted on top of a tank, this is really a very scary thing. However, it was also very much in line with the style of the great German Empire. In real history, only Germany had created an 800mm cannon. It was not out of the question that Herr Hitler had installed a 1000mm gun on his vehicle. P.S. Don't worry about how to install a 1000mm cannon on the small body of a tank. Germany's technology is the best in the world. There is always a possibility. Just imagine it. Boom. The Third Reich made a loud noise that could almost cause an earthquake. A thick cannon shell like the size of a washing machine shot out from the barrel of the 1000mm cannon. It was very powerful. It was hard to imagine what would happen if a person was hit by such a cannon shell. Even King Arthur Artoria would not be able to withstand such a cannon shell. Hitler, a piece of *T like you can't hurt me. Artoria quickly moved to the left and avoided the direct hit of the cannonball. Hitler, your aim is still as bad as ever, Artoria mocked after dodging the cannon shell. King Arthur, look carefully. Who is the target of my cannon shell? Artoria was stunned when she heard that. Only then did she realize that the target of the cannon shell was the marauders parked in the area. The cannon shell did not need to hit the marauders directly. As long as it exploded within a range of 50 meters, the marauders would most likely be dead. Military governor, hurry up and run. Seeing the cannon shell flying toward him, Steel Centipede shouted in panic. He wanted to drive away, but Guhan held his shoulder. Guhan's face was full of smiles and confidence. It's all right. Believe in Artoria. She will save us. As expected, the large cannon shell did not detonate. At that critical moment, Artoria teleported in front of the marauders without fear of death. She used her sword in the stone to cut off the fuse of the cannon shell before it hit the ground and exploded. To be able to cut off a cannon shell moving at multiple times the speed of sound, her eyesight and swordsmanship seemed to be a notch higher than Guhan's. The cannon shell fell not far from the marauders. But because there was no fuse, the cannon shell did not explode. It lay quietly on the ground like an abandoned washing machine. Cough, cough. Artoria, who had saved the lives of Guhan and the others, coughed out a mouthful of blood. Although she had successfully prevented the cannon shell from fatally injuring Guhan and the others, it had also made Artoria's already weak body even worse. Artoria, you are indeed just an empty shell. Be a good girl and come back with me. The Martyr's Palace will always leave the position of King Arthur to you. You will always be one of the 10 kings of the Martyr's Palace. Hitler seemed to be trying to persuade Artoria to change her mind. Truth be told, Adolf Hitler, the Nazi king. You don't want to live a life controlled by filth, do you? If you had the chance to do so, you would also try your best to remove the impurities in your body. Artoria stared at the 1000mm thick muzzle of the Third Reich. It was as if she could see Hitler's face and his trademark mustache through it. Silence. Hitler was suddenly silent for a long time. After a long time, he slowly said in a low voice, "Don't say such useless things. I am not as lucky as you, Artoria. Filth has already integrated into every part of my body. The filth's will is my will. Even as the leader of the Reich, I cannot escape this fate. There will be a chance, Nazi king. Just wait 100 years, and you will have the chance to be like me, to be freed from filth. Hitler, if you let me go today, I promise that in the next 100 years, I will do my best to free you from your fate of filth and return a great leader to the world," Artoria said very sincerely. "Don't waste your breath, Artoria. The filth will not agree. The filth will not agree, and I will not agree either. Today, I must bring you back to the Martyr's Palace. Whether you live or die, you must go back with me." After saying that, the German Third Reich, which originally looked like a tiger tank with a thickened barrel, transformed into a steel robot the size of a human through complex mechanical changes in an instant, just like the robot animation in Japanese manga. However, Hitler's German Third Reich was even more powerful. It could ignore size and the laws of physics. From a monster the size of a tank, it became an object the size of a human. Moreover, there was a pilot inside, the great Führer Comrade Hitler. This was Hitler's super-invincible single-soldier armor, the Third Reich, which he created in a two-dimensional world by combining the most powerful technology in the entire German Reich. Artoria tightened her grip on the stone sword in her hand and rushed toward the Third Reich like lightning. The Third Reich did not use any weapons. It only used a pair of indestructible iron fists forged from mysterious metal to block Artoria's sword. At the same time, dozens of small unmanned attack vehicles flew out from the back of the Third Reich. Each of these unmanned attack vehicles could shoot deadly death lasers at Artoria from dozens of directions at the same time. For a moment, Artoria was surrounded by enemies and was in danger. Military Governor, what are we still watching here? Hurry up and send the Blade Master to fight with Artoria. Seeing such a fierce battle, Steel Centipede could not help but feel excited. He wanted to immediately send his Blade Master to help Artoria fight against the evil Hitler. No, now is not the time for us to make a move. Let's wait and see. Guhan replied calmly. Who knew what he was looking at? Chapter 194. The Storm of Waves team was indeed the strongest team among the famed swordsmen. Against a giant beast like Godzilla, the 6 of them worked together to attack it from the front to the back. The Sword Maidens left many wounds on its body, and they managed to stall Godzilla in place, preventing it from attacking Artoria and the other Sword Maidens who were not far away. Delaying for 5 minutes wasn't a difficult task. If it weren't for the Nazi overlord chasing after them, Long Yu was confident that he could grind the 10 million HP monster to death with enough time. Captain, time's up. Mo Yu, who was responsible for watching the time, reported to Long Yu. Long Yu turned to look at Artoria and found that the light from the sword in the stone in her hand had condensed to the point of explosion. Suddenly, the sword in the stone that was stabbed into the ground slowly rose up. Then, Artoria raised it above her head. Seeing this scene, Long Yu's eyes flashed, and he immediately ordered everyone, retreat. All Sword Maidens, retreat. Artoria's skill is ready. The lady swordsmen who were fighting Godzilla just now received the order from their swordbearers. Without any hesitation, they vanished from Godzilla's surroundings and returned to their swordbearer's side. Godzilla was at a loss when he realized that the mosquitoes that had been pestering him had suddenly disappeared. He thought that the mosquitoes had hidden somewhere, so Godzilla stood where he was, desperately trying to find the traces of those mosquitoes. Godzilla's motionless behavior made him a living target. While Godzilla was searching for the Sword Maidens that had disappeared, Artoria, who had been holding the sword in the lake with her eyes closed, suddenly opened her eyes and uttered the word E. As soon as Artoria uttered the word E, an earth-shattering aura suddenly rose from the ground. A strong wind seemed to blow out of nowhere, blowing so hard that the sword-bearers around Artoria could not open their eyes. X. As Artoria chanted the second incantation, the entire world began to change color. The originally clear sky instantly darkened and turned gray as if it was the end of the world. The strong winds suddenly turned into 6 huge tornadoes, blowing the surrounding ruins and debris into the sky. The surrounding sword-bearers immediately summoned the sword ladies back to their swords. With the help of the sword ladies' strength, they were able to remain standing and not be blown away by the tornado. With such a skill that could change the color of heaven and earth, Godzilla would be a pig if he didn't react. He finally looked at the core of the great change and saw Artoria holding her great sword high in the air. Roar. When Godzilla saw Artoria clearly, he immediately let out a loud roar, but he didn't attack Artoria. On the contrary, the Godzilla took a few steps back, turned around, and ran. It was unknown if he knew the terror of King Arthur Artoria, or if he had sensed this skill that could destroy heaven and earth. Unfortunately, Godzilla's actions were too late. Artoria's skill preparation was complete. Curry stick, curry stick. The moment Artoria used this skill, the world lost all its light. The world within a radius of 100 kilometers dimmed. At the same time, it seemed that all the light that had disappeared was concentrated on the sword of the lake in Artoria's hand. This time, the sword of the lake was frighteningly dazzling, like the light at the center of the sun. Dragon Feather and the others didn't expect the light of this skill to be so dazzling that it blinded their eyes. Even though their eyes had been strengthened by the sword ladies, They closed their eyes the moment the light shone, but they were still blinded by the light. It was as if their eyes were pierced by countless sharp needles, and the pain was unparalleled. They covered their eyes and rolled on the ground crazily. This skill of Artoria was really powerful. Just the light it emitted was enough to blind the eyes of the 6 top swordbearers, causing them to lose most of their combat ability. If they were hit by this skill head-on, it was hard to imagine what kind of damage they would suffer. Sword of Promised Victory. This was the Chinese name of Artoria's skill. Artoria condensed her faith and the king's power in the Sword of the Lake to cast this skill. It was said that the strength of this skill changed according to the degree of Artoria's faith in the heart of the king. When Artoria's faith was at its strongest, the Sword of Promised Victory could even kill a Yamata no Orokai with one strike. That was a super Yuan Ku with 8 heads, and each head had the power of a universe rank. Together, they were at the peak of the universe rank, the super Yuan Ku. The current Artoria naturally couldn't compare to her peak, but the Sword of Promised Victory was not something that a mere meteor rank Yuan Ku Godzilla could withstand. After nearly a minute, Long Yu and the others finally regained their basic vision. When they saw the world in front of them clearly, they couldn't help but be dumbfounded. With Artoria as the center, there was a fan-shaped crack with a radius of more than 30 kilometers. This was the size of half of the city. Within the area covered by this crack, there was only a deep pit about 300 meters deep. Thick smoke constantly rose from the soil, and at the center of the deep pit, the soil was covered with colored glass. Under the extremely high temperature, the quartz in the soil had become colorful glass. As for the Godzilla, perhaps the black thing in the center that looked like coal was the Godzilla of the past. After releasing the Sword of Promised Victory, Artoria once again fell to the ground and fainted. Even if Artoria was at her peak, releasing such an ultimate skill would still be a huge burden, not to mention that Artoria was now in a half-crippled state. Let's go, the Nazi king is about to catch up. Long Yu carried Artoria and directly rushed into the marauders. The rest of the team also jumped into the vehicles and began to speed towards the first safety point. In another dungeon, Artoria's battle with the Nazi king had already lasted for 5 minutes. Facing the humanoid mecha form of the Third Reich, Artoria's body was already riddled with holes. Blood dripped from more than a dozen wounds on her body. Artoria was panting heavily, and she could collapse at any time from exhaustion. Kneel before the Third Reich, King Arthur. This is only the first form of the Third Reich. If it transforms into the second form, you will instantly turn into ashes, Hitler said arrogantly, seeing that Artoria was already a fish on the chopping board. Nazi king, don't even talk about your second form. Even if it's the third form, do you dare to use it to take my Sword of Promised Victory? Artoria forced a smile. Her words and smile made the Nazi king feel like he was being ridiculed. Artoria, do you still think that you are at the peak of your power 300 years ago? Do you think that you can still defeat my Third Reich with a single Sword of Promised Victory? The Führer said through gritted teeth. If you have the guts, stand here and take my Sword of Promised Victory. Artoria sneered. Let me add one more thing. Back then, you were not defeated by my Sword of Promised Victory, but you were crushed by my Sword of Promised Victory. Trash. My Third German Reich shall take on your Sword of Victory and the Promised Sword. The Nazi king pushed Artoria away with a punch. Then, the Third Reich, which was originally only the size of an adult, let out a sharp screech. The entire mecha began to transform into an extremely complex mechanical transformation. Finally, it became a spaceship that was full of the beauty of a sci-fi metal spaceship. That's right, it was a spaceship, a 5,600 meters long and 480 meters tall invincible spaceship, Atlantis. According to the legends of the Germanic people, they were all descendants of the Atlantean people from Atlantis, and the strongest combat weapon of the Atlantean people was this Atlantis spaceship named after Atlantis. This was also the final form of the Third Reich. In fact, the original name of this invincible weapon was Atlantis. No matter what form it was called Atlantis. It was just that in the hands of the Führer, it was forcibly named as the Third Reich. I hope you don't regret this. Artoria stabbed the sword into the ground with both hands, preparing to perform the terrifying power of the Sword of Promised Victory in another dungeon. I will not repeat the process of preparation. 5 minutes later, an attack that was not much weaker than the sword of promised victory and the sword of victory that Long Yu and the others saw landed. The dazzling light dissipated, and Ji Yu Han's team discovered that the huge Atlantis mothership had become battered and exhausted. About 1/3 of it was completely destroyed, and the various cannons that were exposed outside were all damaged, suffering serious damage. I don't know if it can still fight again. I don't know if Atlantis can fight again, but Artoria really can't fight anymore. She was still like Artoria in another dungeon. After using the sword of promised victory, she was so tired that she fainted, and her injuries were even more serious. Trash, King Arthur, your strength has declined too much. If you were at your peak, I, Adolf Hitler, could only escape. But now, I still have the strength to kill you. I still have one main cannon left, but, as soon as the head of state finished speaking, a 1000 caliber laser cannon on the Atlantis began to move its muzzle slowly. Probably due to the damage, the muzzle did not move very fast. According to the speed, it would take about 30 seconds to aim at Artoria. Now is the chance. Military governor, let's go save Artoria. After watching the battle, Steelman's blood was boiling. That's right, military governor. Right now, the Nazi king only has one main cannon left. The Nazi king, who was heavily injured during the Third Reich, cannot return to the Second Reich and First Reich. All we have to do is save Artoria and destroy the main cannon, and we'll be victorious. We will defeat the Nazi king. This is the chance that Artoria gave her all to fight for us. This is also our only chance. Military governor, give the order, Yu Sikong said excitedly. He was right. With the strength of Guhan's team, they could defeat the Nazi king with only one main cannon left. This was the best chance. We retreat. Guhan's lips trembled. He glanced at Artoria, who was lying on the ground, bleeding profusely. He closed his eyes and made a decision. Chapter 195. Long Yu asked a few questions in one go, and Yuan Ku answered all of them. Ahem, it's fine. Don't we still have 2 goblins? Long Yu was a quick-witted fellow. Even though he was embarrassed for a moment, it didn't affect his performance. These 2 goblins were originally going to Old Tree Root Forest. Let them lead the way for us. Long Yu was dumbfounded. This was very awkward. He didn't know where he was right now. Just now, when he told them to follow the directions on the map, it was like a slap to his face. I don't need you to control them. I will. Long Yu laughed coldly. Next, he just had to repeat what he had done to the goblins. He didn't need to think of a way to tame the giant wolves. He directly used the demon soul sword to control the souls of the giant wolves and sped in the direction Long Yu wanted them to go. Not bad, this is the clue. Dragon Feather was quite excited. Everything was going very smoothly. This is an order for these 2 goblins to go to Old Tree Root Forest to investigate. There's a meteor-grade essence soul demon nearby, and it suspects that our human stronghold is in that forest. Everyone, let's follow the directions on the map and head to Old Tree Root Forest as fast as possible. Long Yu was about to leave when Monian pulled his sleeve. He asked with a bitter expression, Captain, where are we going? Where are we now? System notification, Mission 9, find a new safe spot. There may be clues to a safe spot nearby. Please find the clues and head to the safe spot. Please note that the second universe level, Yuan Ku, has already detected your position and is chasing after you. Please escape to a safe spot nearby as fast as possible. Understood. The team members nodded and dispersed. Long Yu carried the unconscious Artoria and searched in a certain direction. Ever since they had dealt with Godzilla, Long Yu had been responsible for carrying Artoria, whether it was hiding in a safe spot or breaking through the small teleportation array of Yuan Ku. Just like Guhan, Long Yu had developed some special feelings for Artoria. Is your mission to investigate the Old Tree Root Forest? Fortunately, according to the goblins, there was a great wolf tribe nearby that had tamed a type of great wolf that could be used as mounts. They had planned to go to the great wolf tribe and ask the great wolf tribe's chief to send them to Old Tree Root Forest. Even though the 2 goblins resisted with all their might, under Long Yu's overwhelming strength, They only lasted a few seconds before their eyes rolled back and they were completely controlled by Long Yu. Yes. Upright gentleman nodded, took out a scroll of sheepskin and handed it to Long Yu, explaining, I found this on the bodies of these two goblins, but I can't understand the magical beast language, so I don't know what's written on it. Do you know where the old tree root forest is, how far it is from here, and how long it takes to walk? However, Long Yu was different. He was extremely talented and was a language genius to begin with. After studying with young Master Ba Yun for more than 10 years, he knew all the common languages between humans and Yuan Ku like the back of his hand. It was naturally no problem for him to read the demon beast language. He only took one look and understood the contents of the sheepskin. These two goblins' mission was to shake up the old tree root forest, and they knew the way there. However, the old tree root forest was more than 50 kilometers away from here. If the team ran at a constant speed, it would take at least 3 hours. By that time, the second Yu level, Yuan Ku, would have caught up with them. It wasn't that Long Yu and the others didn't have these skills, but there was no need to use them on these weaklings. Is the clue nearby? Long Yu looked around and found that he was in a vast expanse of white snow. This was Bing City, but it wasn't Bing City. It seemed to be a forest near Bing City. After hundreds of years, there might still be traces of the city, but the village had completely disappeared. The entire forest seemed to have returned to an uninhabited ancient era. It was a pity that Yarrow Ming was only a goblin. Against the powerful famed sword mistress, he was easily captured by the sword mistress, one in each hand. That's right. The next safe spot is at the old tree root forest. Long Yu projected the map on his personal terminal and searched for a while on the map. He quickly found the location of the old tree root forest and marked it heavily in red. Do you know where we can use transportation nearby? But Captain, what if these two goblins lie to us and lead us to a dangerous place? Gentleman Upright asked worriedly. Gentleman, did you discover anything? Long Yu asked quickly as he glanced at Gentleman Upright. Don't worry, it's just 2 ghost-level Yuan Ku. My demon soul sword can control them. Long Yu released his demon soul sword and reduced the 2 pitiful goblins' HP to half. Then, he used the demon soul sword's 2 tentacles to stab into the goblins' brains. The giant wolf tribe was a medium-sized tribe near Bing City. The strongest was naturally their chief, a nether-level Yuan Ku. He had dozens of dragon-level giant wolf riders and a few hundred ghost-level giant wolf rider servant. All in all, this was a strong force. Everyone, choose a direction and split up to search. If you find anything strange, report to me. The clues are nearby. The heavy snow had sealed off the mountain, and as far as the eye could see, the area around Long Yu was completely covered in snow. Any clues would have been covered by the snow. Long Yu immediately ordered everyone to move towards Gentleman Upright's position. At the same time, Gentleman Upright entered the small building to scout the situation. When Long Yu and the others arrived, Gentleman Upright had just finished scouting the small building. Behind him was his sword Maiden, who was holding 2 large goblins in each hand. These 2 goblins weren't very large. They weren't even as large as an adult. Compared to normal goblins, these 2 goblins were like Yarrow Ming among goblins. Good. We'll go to the giant wolf tribe and borrow their giant wolves. Long Yu sneered. That's right. What I'm worried about the most is transportation. The teleportation formation is on a small island in the middle of a lake. The marauders can't reach there. If we use the formation, we'll lose our only means of transportation. If the safe zone is too far from here, then the quest will be difficult. However, as I said earlier, the system will not give us a dead end. Who knows, there might be a means of transportation hidden in this instance dungeon. When you are looking for clues, you must also pay close attention to see if there are any suitable means of transportation nearby. Do you understand? System prompt, Quest 8, pass through the small teleportation formation. You have passed through the small teleportation formation and arrived at Bing City, which is 1,000 miles away. Dungeon completion rate, 70%. Leader, this is going to be troublesome. Where are we going to find clues? Monion's brain wasn't working very well. In his eyes, everything was white. Everything was covered in snow. There was no way he could find a safe place to hide. If an ordinary famed sword-level party had come here, they would have needed to lure out the Flood Dragon giant wolf knights and kill them one by one. Then, after eliminating the leader's wings, they would begin to surround and attack the nether giant wolf chieftain. This was a normal strategy for ordinary players, but for the Stormwaves party, it was meaningless. They could just charge in and kill their way in. They didn't need to use delicate techniques like luring the monsters or positioning themselves. However, in the face of the ferocious Storm strategy team, the giant wolf tribe was simply not enough. It was simply a massacre. Countless giant wolves and orc knights were beheaded, even the young wolves and orcs were no exception. This was the rule of interaction between humans and Yuengin. They would never show any kindness or tolerance to the other party. This was a battle of life and death. However, Feather Dragon had left 7 giant wolves alive. Each of the 6 famed swordsmen rode one giant wolf. Artoria lay alone on the giant wolf's back. Feather Dragon was responsible for looking after her. Feather Dragon's judgment was correct. The clues were easy to find. After a few minutes, Righteous Gentleman reported back. He had found a small concrete building that hadn't been completely covered in snow. It seemed to have been left behind by a villager. Leader, we've never ridden a giant wolf before. What if we can't control them? Moyu couldn't help but feel worried when he saw these wolves howling and attacking him after having their companions killed. These giant wolves already viewed him as their enemy. How could they willingly accept Moyu's control? We'll have clues soon enough. Feather Dragon was calm when he heard Monian's worry. I've said it before. This dungeon is prepared for ordinary players. The clues won't be hidden in some secret place. Although there's nothing here apart from snow, if we find something else, the clues will be there. Let me see. Long Yu took the parchment and read out the magical beast language without any difficulty. Magical beast language was a common language used by Western magical beasts in Yuan Ku's faction. Since magical beasts had a very different mindset from humans, it was difficult for humans to learn and recognize magical beast language. Most of the famed swordsmen couldn't recognize this strange language. You're worthless. Long Yu used the Imperial Soul Demon Sword to cut off the heads of the 2 goblins. Long Yu already knew the way to Old Tree Root Forest, so these 2 goblins were useless. Chapter 196. Sinner, you should be punished by the heavenly fire and thunder. Suddenly, Hammurabi, who was fighting with the immortal sword-rank swordsman, raised his stone statue of the Codex of Weapons and declared his judgment to the escaping hovercraft. Hammurabi was a great king. He unified the entire Mesopotamia and expanded Babylon's territory to its greatest extent in history. At the same time, under his leadership, he built the Hanging Garden and the Tower of Babel, which was said to be able to communicate with God. However, everything fell apart after Hammurabi's death. After learning that the Eon-rank Yuan Ku, one of the 10 kings of the Martyr's Palace, had become a human and left Yuan Ku, and that he wanted to return to Yangjing City, logically speaking, the 2 swordsmen didn't believe this. But seeing the confident expressions of Long Yu and the others, the 2 swordsmen had no choice but to believe it. Hammurabi was the 6th king of the Babylonian kingdom. He was the first to unify the Mesopotamia and ruled the Middle East region with Iraq as its core. So Long Yu only needed to solve a math problem and bring away the 3 most powerful and useful teammates. The rest would stay here and wait for the final result. Actually, Long Yu didn't have much to worry about. First, he had to go. The remaining 2 could only be the gentleman and the graceful lady, the husband and wife duo with the strongest combat power. Although they didn't have the special sword ladies like the twin swords, as a husband and wife, they had some unusual methods. Sinful Sword Immortal, don't even think of stopping the advancement of the Law King Hammurabi. Waves of anger could be heard coming from the mountain range. From the sounds of it, the second one to arrive was the Law King Hammurabi of the Martyr's Palace. System notification. Quest 10, leave Bing City and complete. You have contacted Yangjing City and received help from them. Follow Yangjing City's instructions and rendezvous with Saiping City's swordsman team. Dungeon completion rate 90%. However, Hammurabi's greatest achievement wasn't the Hanging Garden or the Tower of Babel. Rather, it was the creation of the most complete and systematic set of laws found in human archaeology, the Code of Hammurabi. This was also the origin of Hammurabi's title as the Law King, because Hammurabi controlled the power of law. After waiting in the safe stronghold for nearly 4 hours, Long Yun and the others suddenly felt an earthquake outside. An NPC swordsman recklessly opened the barrier and saw an earth-shattering battle raging on a nearby mountain range. The entire forest was engulfed in a sea of fire. This is the aura of an immortal sword wielder. He has already entangled that Yuan Ku. We must retreat immediately, shouted the NPC swordsman. He ran to the center of the stronghold and summoned a hovercraft from his dimensional pocket. As expected, they received news from Long Yu and learned that they had arrived at the observation point near Bing City. They immediately gave new instructions. System notification, Mission 10, leave Bing City region, use the Safe Zones communication system to contact Beijing City. Get help from Beijing City and think of a way to leave Bing City region and return to Beijing. Half an hour later, Dragon Feather successfully met up with the swordbearers from Siping City. The final quest of this dungeon had finally begun. Sinner's blood. In the judgment of the law, you are guilty. You deserve the punishment of 1,000 cut. Hammurabi, who had been beaten up by the Sinner's Bloodsword Immortals, angrily inflicted the punishment of 1,000 cuts on the Sinner's Bloodsword Immortals. Thousands of swords flew towards the Sinner's Bloodsword Immortals, but they were all blocked by the Sinner's Bloodsword Immortals. The law of Hammurabi is the law that judges sinners. Only those sinners who are guilty and try to avoid will be judged by the law. Those who are not guilty, the law cannot be imposed on them. Dragon Feather quickly explained to the NPC driving, if you turn to avoid, it means that you are guilty, and these meteorites will definitely hit us. Only those who have a clear conscience, who charge straight without turning, will not be judged by the law. So we cannot turn, we must go straight. What Dragon Feather said was true. This was a detailed explanation of Hammurabi's abilities in later generations. This Law King was later attacked by the swordbearers from the Immortals' Sword Immortals during the Battle of the Valhalla. Although he was rescued by the 100-level Yuan Ku, he was gravely injured. After that, he had not appeared in the world for hundreds of years. In reality, these two people's strength was about the same, and neither could do anything to the other. After fighting for a while, Hammurabi seemed to forget his true goal and began to fight the Sinner's Bloodsword Immortals. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Dragon Feather and the others successfully escaped from the Law King's pursuit and began to advance towards Siping City. A few minutes later, the safety base's disguise was completely removed. A large patch of snow parted, and a hovercraft flew out from the ground. Then, it sped towards Siping City at full speed. Everything went smoothly. Dragon Feather and the others successfully arrived at the old tree root forest, and very smoothly found the secret entrance to the safety base disguised as a large tree in the forest. When Yangjing City's correspondent reported this news as a joke to his superiors, they received great attention from their superiors. A Yangjing City's communications director stood guard in the communications room, waiting for new information. So they chose to contact Yangjing City and prepare to receive orders from them. Turn. Avoid these meteorites. An NPC sword wielder shouted. The other NPC sword wielder in charge of driving turned the steering wheel violently, trying to avoid the meteorites. What was even more fortunate was that there was a sword wielder in this stronghold. When Dragon Feather knocked on the door, the two of them almost started fighting. Fortunately, the sword wielder confirmed Dragon Feather's identity and let them into the stronghold. In this world, the swordbearers always had a high level of trust in the other swordbearers. No one would suspect that their own kind would stab them in the back. Because of the long history of humans living together for warmth and self-preservation, every human had developed a very noble character. Even if they betrayed humanity, as a traitor, the swordbearers would rather die than stab their own kind in the back. This was the result of the education and environment they had received since young. Okay. The NPC sword wielder finally chose to believe Dragon Feather's words and drove straight towards the area where the meteorites landed. Things were just as Dragon Feather had said. Although these meteorites landed very close to the hovercraft, none of them hit the vehicle. Dragon Feather and the others successfully avoided this attack. Yangjing City had already sent a sword wielder of the fairy sword tier to the vicinity of Bing City to stall the pursuing universe-level Yuan Ku. Dragon Feather and the others were ordered to stay in the safety of the safety base until the sword wielder could stall the universe-level Yuan Ku. Once the universe-level Yuan Ku was stalled, they would immediately board the hovercraft and rush to Saiping City to meet up with a team led by a sword wielder of the spirit sword tier there to receive new orders. King of Law, you dare to be distracted in front of my sinner's blood? Do you want to die? Seeing that the target he was protecting had been attacked, the sinful blood sword immortal, who was in charge of tying down the Law King, became furious. His sword mistress raised her hand and released a flurry of crazy sword lights, fiercely attacking Hammurabi. In a moment, Hammurabi was in a state of chaos. A few minutes ago, Yangjing City's communication center had received Dragon Feather and the others' message. They had also received news of King Arthur and told Dragon Feather and the others about the existence of the small teleportation portal, which allowed them to be teleported to Bing City, which was thousands of miles away. We can't turn around. Just go. Speed up. Just rush over. Dragon Feather pressed down on the shoulder of the NPC who was driving, preventing him from trying to turn around. We only have one hovercraft in this stronghold, and it can only seat 6 people. Out of the 6 of you, 3 of you must stay here and wait for us to come back to pick you up. Out of the 6 spots, 2 were for the NPC sword wielder, and Artoria also had to be taken away. Thus, there were only 3 spots left for Dragon Feather's team. This meant that Dragon Feather had to let 3 people stay here. It seemed like a choice between life and death, because the people who stayed here might be killed by the enraged universe-level Yuan Ku. In reality, the death rate of staying here was quite high. System notification, Mission 11, Return to Yangjing City with the sword wielder team from Saiping City. Please be careful, the 3rd universe level, Yuan Ku, has begun to hunt you down. Yangjing City is unable to send a second fairy sword tier sword wielder to protect you in a short period of time. You can choose to find a secret location and wait for the second fairy sword tier sword wielder to escort you 10 hours later. Alternatively, you can choose to return to Yangjing City. However, after fighting for half a day, all of Hammer's abilities had been grasped by the sword wielder, which was why the records were so detailed. However, in reality, this was not a matter of life and death. After all, this was still a dungeon, and the 3 people left behind were all players. If they saw that they were about to die, they could just escape from the exit of the safe stronghold. Trust me, there's no mistake. At the same time, Yangjing City requested that Artoria's life be protected at all costs. Even if all the sword wielder died in battle, they had to complete this mission. System notification, Mission 9, Find a new safe location. You have found a safe location. Dungeon completion rate, 80%. Almost a second after Hammurabi's judgment, the sky suddenly turned fiery red, and hundreds of blazing meteors fell from the sky. Their target was the hovering flying car that was running wildly. Chapter 197. On the way to Saiping City, Artoria, who had been in a coma after using the Sword of Promised Victory, woke up once again. After asking about the current situation, especially after learning that the other 3 sword-bearers who had saved her were left at the core of the battlefield and most likely wouldn't be able to come back alive, Artoria was so moved that she shed 2 drops of hot tears. This made Long Yu's heart tremble, as if his heart had been knocked by something. Outside the ruins of Saiping City, the sword-bearers who had already received orders from Yangjing City were sitting in 3 hover cars, waiting for Long Yu's hover car on the way. As soon as they saw Long Yu's hover car appear, 2 of the 3 hover cars immediately flew behind Long Yu to protect his back, while the remaining one blocked in front of Long Yu, opening the way for him. These 3 hover cars protected Long Yu's hover car in the core position, as if they were protecting a politician. Don't waste time, return to Yangjing City at full speed. A deep and cold male voice came from the speaker of the hover car. This was a communication from another hover car. It seemed that this person should be the leader of the team of swordbearers, the spirit sword level swordbearers. Under the protection of the 3 hover cars, the convoy had been moving forward very smoothly, although there were many Yuan Ku coveting this seemingly juicy piece of meat along the way. However, most of the Yuan Ku's speed couldn't keep up with the speed of the hover cars, and the Yuan Kus that could keep up with the speed of the hover cars were all killed by the sword chi of the sword ladies of the spirit swordbearers. In less than 3 hours, the convoy arrived at Shanghai Pass, the entrance to what was once the world's #1 pass in China. After passing Shanghai Pass, they would be able to reach Yangjing base city in another 300 kilometers or so. It could be said that once one crossed the Shanghai Pass, one would gradually enter the territory controlled by the human swordbearers. The area within a radius of 300 kilometers from the Yangjing base city was basically under human control. There were very few Yuan Ku in that area. Even though there would be Yuan Ku risking his life to barge into that area from time to time, it was impossible for Yuan Ku to survive in that area for too long under the high-intensity patrols of the swordbearers. However, this did not mean that it was impossible for something unexpected to happen. Some of the stronger Yuan Ku would occasionally barge into this area and carry out anti-cleaning killings against the swordbearers. Not good, I can feel it. A U-level Yuan Ku is approaching us. It was the 4-Elephant King, Li Yuanba. This aura belongs to the 4 Elephant Kings. Artoria, who had been sitting in the back row with her eyes closed, suddenly said in a hurry. As the previous Yuan Ku, Artoria naturally wouldn't feel anything wrong. This meant that the 3rd U-level Yuan Ku who was chasing Artoria, the 4 Elephant King Li Yuanba, was already behind Long Yu and the others. 10 more minutes, at most 10 more minutes, and Li Yuanba's 1,000 miles cloud will catch up with us. Li Yuanba, the king of the 4 elephants that Artoria mentioned, was the first hero of the Sui and Tang dynasties in the Middle Ages. It was said that his strength could hold 4 elephants and make them unable to move, so he was known as the king of the 4 elephants. Among the 10 kings, the tyrant was dead, so the 4-elephant king Li Yuanba was undoubtedly the most powerful one. This was a U-level Yuan Ku who walked the path of ferocity. In the entire convoy, almost no one could stop this 4-elephant king Li Yuanba. Long Yu quickly relayed Artoria's discovery to the spirit sword level swordsman through the communication system. After the other party heard the whole news, he fell into a long silence, as if he was thinking about how to escape from Li Yuanba's pursuit. Long Yu kept biting his knuckles. In his heart, he already had a whole set of escape methods, but he needed the cooperation of these NPCs. The problem was that the commanding authority was not in his hands, and he could not command these NPCs at all. He also did not dare to tell his plan to the spiritual sword level swordsman, because his plan was very simple, and that was to let these NPCs die, using their deaths in exchange for his own life. Changsheng, stop with your team and the hover car, and attract Li Yuanba's attention. After a long silence, the leading spirit sword level swordsman made a decision, and his decision was actually the same as Long Yu's. Changsheng, later, you will take the initiative to attack Li Yuanba. Li Yuanba's brain isn't working well, he will definitely chase you. Then drive the car and run in the opposite direction, desperately run, desperately hide. In this way, you might have a chance of survival. The tone of this spirit sword level sword wielder didn't sound like he would have a chance of survival if he lived a long life. This Changsheng and his team didn't answer, but the hover car suddenly braked, and then quickly turned around, rushing in the direction of Li Yuanba. Soon, they couldn't be seen. The aura of the 4-elephant kings has stopped, he has started to turn around, his aura is moving away from us. 5 minutes later, Artoria, who had been sensing Li Yuanba's aura, suddenly said. This meant that Changsheng's team had officially confronted Li Yuanba, and they had successfully attracted Li Yuanba's hatred. In this dead silence, the convoy continued to move forward at high speed. 30 minutes later, Li Yuanba's aura once again approached the convoy. The second hover car received the order and began to turn around, heading towards the path of death. The second hover car delayed for less than 30 minutes. At this time, there were only 2 hover cars left. The spirit sword level swordsman didn't give another order. Instead, he directly drove his hover car towards Li Yuanba's position. The spirit sword-level swordsman delayed for far longer than the famed sword-level swordsman in the previous 2 hover cars. Although Artoria once again sensed the aura of the 4 Elephant Kings on the last 50 kilometers of the journey to Yangjing City, this time, the 4 Elephant Kings hesitated for a moment, and then took the initiative to retreat. Although the 4 Elephant Kings were stupid, they weren't stupid. Years of fighting with human swordsmen told him that it was a very stupid thing to approach within 50 kilometers of Yangjing City alone. There could be 2 or 3 immortal sword-level swordsmen rushing out at any time, and they would take their lives, so the 4 Elephant Kings chose to give up. System notification, Mission 11, return has been completed. Artoria has successfully entered Yangjing City and obtained protection. Dungeon progress, 100%. System notification, congratulations to player Long Yu, player Upright Gentleman, player Fair Lady, player Shui Lei Xing, player Monian, player Ling Yun. You have successfully completed King Arthur's Betrayal Dungeon. Congratulations, you are the first team to complete King Arthur's Betrayal. System notification, the dungeon space will automatically close in 30 seconds. Player Long Yu can click on the return button at the bottom right corner of his vision to return to the dungeon's settlement center. He can also wait for 30 seconds and forcibly return to the settlement center. After reluctantly handing over Artoria, whom he had painstakingly rescued to the higher-ups of Yangjing City, Long Yu, who was waiting at the city gate, heard the system notification. Long Yu let out a huge sigh of relief. Hearing this system notification meant that he had successfully completed the dungeon. Thinking of that, Long Yu could not help but feel pleased with himself. He had led his team into the King Arthur's Betrayal dungeon for the first time and successfully completed 100% of the dungeon's progress. He had completely crushed the Hung Mountain Sword Sect, Nine State Sword Sect and Yaoguang Sword Sect, who had been stuck at 60% of the dungeon's progress for a month. Especially the Yaoguang Sword Sect. They had managed to invite the recently popular internet celebrity, the military governor. So what? In the end, he was still crushed by him. Once he leaves this dungeon, he will become a great hero of the entire Brilliant Waves Empire. He will also become the object of admiration for all the players in the game world. It was I, Long Yu, who had brought them a brand new dungeon experience. It was he, Long Yu, who had used his great strength to achieve something that those good-for-nothings could not even achieve in a month. I will definitely become even more of an internet celebrity than that military governor, Long Yu thought. He was also somewhat excited. But he quickly corrected the error in his thinking. It was just a small achievement. He had only defeated an internet celebrity. How did he become so arrogant? He must remain calm. He must use a calm and cold attitude to face this small achievement. When he stands at the peak, that will be when he can truly be proud of himself. Leader, are you still going back? The dungeon is about to close. Gentleman saw that Long Yu was still standing there, so he poked Long Yu's waist. Only then did Long Yu realize that it was time to return to the Instance Dungeon Settlement Center. This time, the Instance Dungeon Settlement Center's theme was the Sahara Desert. In the middle of the yellow sand, there were several large sofas. The 3 members who had stayed in Bing City were already sitting on the sofas, waiting for Long Yu's team. When Long Yu sat down on the sofa, the accountant who had been silent all this time finally said her first line. Accountant 2008 is at your service. Hello, respected player Long Yu, player Gentleman, player Fair Lady, player Shui Lei Xing, player Monian, player Ling Yun. Your dungeon King Arthur's Betrayal has completed the statistics. Do you want to begin settlement? You can also choose to enjoy the scenery here. Our settlement center's theme today is Sahara Desert. No need. Please begin settlement directly. Long Yu was eager to know his dungeon's rating. This was because Long Yu had just remembered that if he wanted to open up the hidden dungeon as a regular dungeon and receive the cheers of everyone, completing 100% of the dungeon's progress was not enough. The most important thing was to obtain an S rating. Okay. Beginning settlement. Main Mission 1 completed, Main Mission 2 completed, Main Mission 11 completed, Side Mission completed. Total time taken, 7 hours, 16 minutes, 34 seconds. Beginning mission comprehensive evaluation. Evaluation criteria, unknown. Evaluation result, F. What? Only F class? Are you guys making a mistake? We fought so hard, how can we only get an F rating? And this evaluation criteria, what the hell is this? You better tell us, or else I will go to bat and complain about you. When Xue Leishing heard that he only got an F rating, he immediately flew into a rage. What a joke. He had fought for more than 7 hours, and he only got an F rating? Shut up. Xue Leishing, F is F. Long Yu pressed Xue Leishing down. Also, before the opening of a hidden dungeon, the evaluation criteria are unknown. This is common knowledge. Seeing Long Yu's gloomy expression, Xue Leishing decisively chose to shut his mouth. I am very sorry. Your quest evaluation is F and this is a hidden dungeon. Before obtaining an S rating, the settlement center is unable to issue rewards. Your dungeon rewards will be accumulated in the settlement center and will be awarded to the first team to complete an S rating. Player Long Yu, your settlement is over. You will be leaving the settlement center in 30 seconds. You are welcome to come back. Chapter 198. Master. Inside young Master Ba Yun's sword catacomb, the old fox held an opium pipe in his hand and leisurely reclined on a rocking chair. Beside him, Long Yu had his head lowered. He looked as though he had just scored 40 points and was looking for his parents to sign. What's wrong? Why are you so listless? Young Master Ba Yun flicked his opium pipe. I heard that you were the first to successfully clear the instance dungeon. Why do you look so dejected? Do you think I'm not dead yet? Master, disciple doesn't dare. Hearing that, Long Yu panicked and knelt on the ground. Get up, I know you don't dare. Although you are a little evil, you are still a good child. I just want to ask you, do you know what you did wrong? Why did you only get an F rating? Young Master Ba Yun patted Long Yu's head and got him to stand up. Young Master Ba Yun did not have any descendants. Long Yu was someone he had carefully raised. For young Master Ba Yun, there was no difference between him and his own son. Disciple doesn't know. Master, please enlighten me. This was the biggest doubt in Long Yu's heart. After exiting the instance dungeon and entering young Master Ba Yun's sword catacomb, he still could not figure it out. He had done a lot of things perfectly the next day, so why was he only given an F rating? Even if there were some mistakes that he did not think of, it was not enough to give him an F rating. An A or B rating would be more reasonable. This F was like a thorn that pierced deep into Long Yu's head. It made him uncomfortable to sit, uncomfortable to stand, and even more uncomfortable to lie down. I have already guessed the reason. Giving you an F is not wrong at all. It complements your stupidity. Young Master Ba Yun knocked Long Yu's head. However, I will not tell you the specific reason. Think about it yourself and guess it yourself. If Master has to enlighten you on everything, how can we, the Azure Billows, rely on your head in the future? Master does not have long to live. Master has already sensed Sir Gendi's call. It won't be long before I follow Sir Gendi. Once I leave, Miss Ou Gen will have to rely on you to assist her. Master, you'll be fine. Your body is so good, and you even ate more than 10 kilograms of natural pork yesterday. Hearing that his master was going to die, Long Yu was a little incoherent. At my level, which swordbearer isn't living a carefree and happy life a second ago, and the next second, they're gone forever? Master had already sensed that that day was not far away. That's why I need to train you so that you can improve faster, faster. Young Master Ba Yun let out a long sigh. This time, I've asked for 3 chances from Miss Ou General Long Yu. Master believes in you. You'll definitely be able to find the problem within these 3 chances and solve it. You'll receive an S-rank evaluation. Then, Master can leave in peace. Yes, Master. Your disciple understands. Your disciple doesn't need to do it 3 times. Your disciple will be able to see through the entire dungeon the next time. Long Yu bit his knuckles hard. All right. You have ambition. Master believes that you can do it. Go and rest now. You must be exhausted after working hard in the instance dungeon for 8 hours. Go and rest now. You can enter the instance dungeon tomorrow, young Master Ba Yun said with a kind and satisfied tone. No, Master. Your disciple will go now. Long Yu felt a rush of hot blood to his brain. Master, Long Yu can't slack off. The military governor is right behind me. If I'm one step slower, he might overtake me. Long Yu heard that the military governor triggered a Gendi level mission. He definitely triggered an Emperor Sword level mission in the instance dungeon. However, I didn't even see the shadow of a Gendi level mission. Your disciple is not as good as the military governor. After Long Yu returned to the game and received the news that the military governor triggered a Gendi level instance dungeon, he instantly felt like he had lost his soul. He became even more depressed. At the beginning of this chapter, Long Yu's dejected expression was mostly due to the fact that the commander had triggered the Sword Emperor level mission, not because of that but because the commander had triggered the Sword Emperor level mission. This made Long Yu feel like he had completely lost to the military governor. Before this, Long Yu had always thought that he was the leader of the new generation in the game, just like Ou Gen from 10 years ago and Yaoguang from 20 years ago. Him? The military governor? My good disciple, you don't have to worry about that person. Even 3 military governors added together can't compare to you. Young Master Ba Yun suddenly laughed 3 times after hearing Long Yu's words. When the military governor triggered a Gendi level mission, Master thought that the military governor was an interesting fellow. However, Yaoguang Sword faction just received news that the military governor's second entry into the dungeon was still stuck at 60%. I heard that this time's dungeon was completely under the command of the military governor. This fellow is just a lucky bastard. He is no match for you. Go to sleep in peace. Clear your mind and fight again tomorrow, understand? Yes, Master. Hearing that the military governor was still stuck at 60%, Long Yu instantly perked up and felt much more comfortable. Humans were like this. When they suddenly heard that the person who had been pressing down on them for a long time had scored in the 20s, they would instantly feel that they had improved by 20 places. On the forum, the situation where the military governor's Gendi level mission dominated the discussion gradually became balanced. The discussion regarding the Great Waves of the Sea was now on par with the Gendi level mission. On one hand, it was because the topic had gradually calmed down after the eruption phase. On the other hand, the Great Waves of the Sea's latest dungeon progress was announced on the forum. The Great Waves of the Sea's clearers entered the dungeon for the first time, but they had already cleared the dungeon and obtained a B-rank dungeon rating. This was a dungeon that other sects had been stuck at 60% for a month, but the Great Waves of the Sea actually cleared it on their first attempt. As expected of the Great Waves of the Sea. The Great Waves of the Sea is truly the best in the world. The difference between the Great Waves of the Sea and 9 state sword factions is 10 Yaoguang sword factions was endless. Especially when the Great Waves of the Sea announced that the Yaoguang sword faction was still stuck at 60%, this kind of discussion became even more rampant. All the players generally believed that the first place this time was still the Great Waves of the Sea, and that the Yaoguang sword faction was just trash. Military governor was just lucky, military governor was just a mediocre internet celebrity, military governor did not have any strength at all, the strongest player of the new generation should be the Great Waves of the Sea's dragon feather, and so on. Wave after wave of comments flew on the forum, and the haters began to spit at the military governor. However, the quality of the haters in this era was very good. They never spat about dirty topics such as parents, organs, and so on. Instead, they used data and facts to slap the face of the military governor. However, from another perspective, this was a more severe blow to the military governor. When haters spat about other people's parents and organs, it would only make the bystanders feel disgusted. However, when they spat out data and facts, the bystanders would completely believe what the haters said. For a time, the popularity of the military governor on the forum quickly turned from red to black. If Guhan did not do anything to respond, his great future as an internet celebrity would become black. So, what was Guhan doing at this time? As the best way to solve the problem, Guhan was, of course, in a meeting. The founding father taught us to use collective wisdom when we encountered difficulties. What was a better way to gather collective wisdom? Of course, it was a meeting. In the conference room of the Yaoguang sword faction, all the members of the strategy team, including Guhan, were sitting in their seats. Among the 6 of them, Steel Centipede was the most emotional. He could not stop waving his fists, kicking a chair, and cursing. The Yu siblings, who were slightly better than Steel Centipede, sat in their seats with gloomy expressions. They stared at Guhan, who was sitting opposite them, as if they wanted to question Guhan. Magic Pen was very calm. He focused on the information in his hands and did not even raise his head. The happiest one was Hong Yu. She was focused on taking care of her nails, using vermilion nail polish to draw cute hearts on her nails. The atmosphere in the conference room was very strange, and the source of this strange feeling was the commander of this dungeon, Ji Han. At the last moment of Artoria's battle, he sacrificed all his strength to destroy the Third Reich, the Nazi king's ship, until it only had one main cannon left. At this time, if Guhan commanded the team to destroy the remaining main cannon, they would be able to destroy all the combat power of the Third Reich. They would be able to save Artoria and continue the mission. But Guhan told everyone to retreat. Yes, that's right. Retreat. They immediately retreated from the exit of the Marauder's dungeon and ended the dungeon on the spot. After forcing everyone to leave the dungeon, Guhan did not explain anything along the way. He only asked everyone to return to the Yaoguang sword faction's encampment and said that he had a meeting. Then, this strange atmosphere had been maintained until now. Chapter 199. Yo, everyone is waiting here. After waiting in the conference room for about 20 minutes, Yao Guang suddenly pushed open the door to the conference room and appeared in the room. Yao Guang sat on the chairman's seat, then glanced at Guhan and smiled. Mr. Military Governor, you called me here to have this meeting. What's the matter? It's not a big deal. There are just some things that need to be dealt with. Guhan stood up and suddenly bowed to Yao Guang. Then, he bowed deeply to all the members. Mr. Military Governor, what are you doing? Guhan was stunned, then quickly held onto Guhan's waist. Everything was fine. What are you doing? Mr. Yaoguang, everyone, I, Military Governor, am bowing to apologize to you. Guhan sounded very sincere. Apologize. Now you know how to apologize. Steel Centipede exploded when he heard Guhan's apology. What's the use of apologizing now? You should have commanded us to rush forward and rescue Artoria, then continue leading us to complete the dungeon, instead of apologizing to us here. We don't need it. Sigh. Military Governor, you really don't need to apologize for this. I have also read your dungeon report. Although I'm not sure why you chose to retreat at that time, I believe that Military Governor, you must have sufficient reasons to do so. I believe in you. You don't need to apologize. Yao Guang's words were very considerate, as if he did not blame Guhan's choice to retreat at all. Steel Centipede, you misunderstood. Guhan glanced at Steel Centipede, then at Yao Guang. Mr. Yao Guang, you also misunderstood. My apology is not for the choice to retreat just now, but for the big words I said. A boast. Yao Guang was stunned. He didn't know what kind of boast Guhan had said. Before entering this instant's dungeon, I told everyone that I am confident that we can push the dungeon's progress to at least 70%. As long as everyone listens to my commands, we will definitely succeed. At this point, Guhan bowed again. I'm sorry, I broke my promise. This time, I didn't even reach 60% of the progress. I apologize for my big words. Guhan's apology made everyone look at each other. They had no idea what Guhan was up to. I apologize for saying that we can achieve at least 70% progress. Now, I want to say something to everyone. Guhan naturally returned to his seat and looked around. Next time, our instance dungeon progress will be at least 100%. What? What? Guhan's words made the meeting room restless again. This guy had just apologized for 70%, and now he was talking nonsense about achieving 100%. Where did he get his confidence from? Except for Hong Yu, who maintained absolute calmness, everyone, including Yao Guang, had different expressions. No one knew what they were thinking. Good, Mr. Military Governor. Suddenly, Yao Guang began to applaud. However, only Yao Guang was applauding. The others looked confused, which made Yaoguang's loud applause sound monotonous and awkward. However, Yaoguang didn't seem to care about the awkward applause. He continued to applaud and the applause grew louder. Hee hee. Hongyu suddenly laughed. After Yaoguang's applause, she also applauded. Moreover, the applause suppressed Yaoguang's momentum. After Hongyu, Magic Pen also began to applaud. Magic Pen's applause was very rhythmic. Every slap seemed to be hitting an unknown beat. What is going on? Seeing that everyone in the conference room began to applaud inexplicably, even the Yu siblings began to applaud. Steel Man involuntarily began to applaud along with everyone, and because his palm was the largest, he was the one who applauded the loudest among the six. In the face of this inexplicable yet unusually loud applause, Guhan couldn't help but feel some respect for Yaoguang. With such a leader, Yaoguang's sword sect would not have to worry about not replacing one of the 10 major sword sects. Mr. Military Governor, you specifically invited me here. I don't think it's as simple as apologizing and telling me that the next time I can achieve 100% progress. Yaoguang put down his hands and looked at Guhan. Tell me, you still have something you need my help with. It's not a big deal. I hope to send a letter of challenge to Great Waves in the name of Yaoguang's sword sect. Guhan clicked on his personal terminal a few times, and a letter of challenge with a few dozen words was projected into the air. TSS. Those who read the letter sucked in a breath of cold air. Although there were not many words in the letter, for Great Ocean Waves, every word was filled with provocation and disdain. If this letter were to be sent to Great Ocean Waves, the two sword sects would surely explode. Even with Yaoguang's temperament and shrewdness, he couldn't help but take a few steps back after reading the letter of challenge. He rubbed his temples. Mr. Military Governor, you're still full of confidence in yourself and our Yaoguang sword sect. May I ask why Mr. Military Governor would issue such a letter of challenge? This way, our Yaoguang sword sect will have established the strongest enemy in the game. Of course there are benefits. Guhan smiled. Let's not talk about other things. After this letter of challenge, your Yaoguang sword sect's fame and reputation in the game will be able to go hand in hand with Great Waves. You'll be able to squeeze out the 10th place and officially enter the 10 major sword sects. It'll be a big step forward. That's just a false reputation. Without the support of strength, everything is just an illusion to our Yaoguang sword sect. Yaro Guang shook his head. If this is the only reason, forgive me for rejecting this request. What if this letter of challenge can increase the strength of our Yaoguang sword sect? Guhan tapped on his personal terminal again. Under the letter of challenge, there were more than 10 lines of small words. Yaoguang's eyes lit up when he read the words clearly. If this letter of challenge could really be realized, his Yaoguang sword sect's strength would undoubtedly increase tremendously. Even if they had to face Great Waves as an enemy, it wouldn't be a loss. This game and the environment of humans forbade PK between major guilds. As long as Yaoguang's sword sect focused on avoiding the battle, Great Waves wouldn't be able to cause any substantial damage to Yaoguang's sword sect. By the time the results of this letter of challenge were digested, Yaoguang's sword sect's strength would naturally become one of the 10 major sword sects. Not to mention, this letter of challenge would greatly increase Yaoguang's sword sect's reputation. I admit that this letter of challenge will indeed bring great benefits to Yaoguang's sword sect. However, what benefits does it bring to you, Mr. Military Governor? Yaoguang was tempted. He just couldn't figure out why Guhan wanted him to issue such a letter of challenge. Of course, I want benefits too. Guhan tapped on his personal terminal again, and another line of words appeared at the bottom. I see. Yaoguang nodded, but immediately asked, Mr. Military Governor, why didn't you issue this letter of challenge alone? Why did you drag my Yaoguang sword sect along? It's simple. If I issue this letter of challenge alone, with Great Waves sword sect's identity, they will definitely ignore me. However, if it's Yaoguang sword sect issuing it, then Great Waves sword sect has no reason to reject it. Great Waves sword sect will definitely agree to this letter of challenge. Guhan was right. Great Waves sword sect could ignore an ordinary player's provocation. However, he couldn't ignore a sect's provocation. If Great Waves sword sect rejected it, regardless of the reason, In the eyes of the players, it would be seen as Great Wave's Sword Sect admitting defeat. This was something that Great Wave's Sword Sect couldn't accept. Hence, Great Wave's Sword Sect would definitely agree to it. Then, there's only one question left. Yao Guang sat up straight. Mr. Military Governor, why should I believe that you will be able to complete the first clear of the S-Class Instance Dungeon before Great Wave's Sword Sect? If we issue the letter of challenge according to Mr. Military Governor's instructions, once you fail the first clear of the S-Class Instance Dungeon, then our Yaoguang Sword Sect will suffer heavy losses. Half of our sect's assets will be lost. Why should I believe you? You have to know that under your command, we didn't even reach 60% of the progress the last time. Just a few minutes ago, Yaoguang had said that he believed that Guhan would fulfill his promise. However, now, he was doubting Guhan again. Of course. I wonder if Mr. Yaoguang would like to have a private chat with me? Guhan extended his hand and gestured for Yaoguang to leave. All right. Then I'll listen to what Mr. Military Governor has to say to me. Yaoguang stood up and followed Guhan out of the meeting room. After a few minutes, a letter of challenge was manually pushed to the top of the forum. It complemented Military Governor's Emperor Sword level mission and Great Wave's Sword Sect's Instance Dungeon progress post. The three of them created a storm in the forum. Letter of challenge to Great Wave's Sword Sect. Our sect heard that your esteemed sect has completely cleared the hidden instance dungeon and secretly said that we are stuck at 60% of the progress. We are not happy and wish to compete with your esteemed sect. Today, our sect has prepared a small wager. The first to clear the S-Class will be the winner. I wonder if your esteemed sect dares to make a bet. This was a rather short sentence. When translated, it was, I heard that you have already cleared the hidden instance dungeon and secretly said that we are stuck at 60% of the progress. We are not happy and wish to compete with your esteemed sect. Now, our sword sect has prepared a small wager. The first sect to clear the instance dungeon with an S-Class will be the winner. I wonder if you dare to make a bet with us. Then, below the letter of challenge, there was a list of the names and numbers of items to be used as the wager. There were many types and numbers of items. Gathering all these items would be enough to bankrupt a small sect or even a medium-sized sect. For Yaoguang Sword Sect, this was more than half of the sect's heritage. Even when compared to Great Wave's Sword Sect's heritage, these items were not to be underestimated. What was noteworthy was that, at the last position of the wager, there was an additional sentence. Military Governor is willing to use the one and only Gendi level starting mission as a wager for the 3 demon subduing sword formation. Yes, the one and only Gendi level starting mission could be used as a wager. As long as Guhan shared the mission with another person and gave up the mission at the cost of failing the mission, it would be equivalent to trading the mission away. Chapter 200. The Tri-Talent Demon Subduing Sword Formation was the trashiest sword formation out of all the sword formation diagrams. Just like the goblins in World of Warcraft, it was the sword formation with the worst effects. Even so, the Tri-Talent Demon Subduing Sword Formation was something that could make a sword wielder fight for it with everything they had. This was because the sword formation diagram was even rarer than the equipment of a sword lady, and its actual effects far surpassed the equipment of a sword lady. Up until now, there had been a total of 5 sword formation diagrams in the game. Out of these 5 sword formation diagrams, 3 of them had already disappeared. The remaining one was definitely in the hands of the Billowing Storm Sword Sect. There were only 2 of them left in the entire game, so one could imagine how precious this sword formation diagram was. That was why Guhan had used his Emperor Sword level mission as a bet with the Billowing Storm Sword Sect. Otherwise, there would not have been anything that could match this Tri-Talent Demon Subduing Sword Formation diagram. The question was, what was the use of this sword formation diagram? Could it be compared to an Emperor Sword level mission? First of all, there were 2 ways to use the sword formation diagram. The first way was to use it as a normal tool, which could greatly increase the sword lady's ability to fight as a group. For example, this Tri-Talent Demon Subduing Sword Formation diagram required 3 sword ladies to use. Once it was used, the attributes of the 3 sword ladies would increase by 50%, and their attack power against the demonic Yuan Ku would increase by 150%. With this tri-talent demon subduing sword formation diagram, their battle power would not just be doubled against any demonic Yuan Ku. After the tri-talent demon subduing sword formation was revealed, the three sword ladies of the spiritual sword rank had combined to kill the universe-level Yuan Ku. With the sword formation diagram, it was not possible to challenge someone of a higher level. However, this did not seem to be a big problem for Guhan. Guhan often challenged people of a higher level. The second way to use it was to place the sword formation diagram into one's purple palace and merge it with one's sword mark. This was the true way to use the sword formation diagram. It was also the most important function of the sword formation diagram. It allowed a player to have multiple sword maidens in battle at the same time. All the spectators knew that a sword wielder could only release one sword maiden to battle at a time. This was a strict rule. However, this did not mean that this rule could not be broken. As long as the sword formation diagram was in hand, this rule could be broken. Once the sword formation diagram was integrated into one's purple palace and one's sword mark, the sword lady would be able to break through the limitation of only being able to release one person at a time and appear on the battlefield at the same time. Using the Trinity Demon subduing sword formation as an example, after Guhan placed the sword formation diagram into his purple palace, he could at most integrate 3 sword scars into the sword formation diagram. After all, the reason why only one sword maiden could appear at a time was because the wielder could only display the sword scars of one sword maiden at a time. However, after the 3 sword scars were wrapped and merged by the sword formation diagram, the wielder only needed to display the sword formation diagram to directly display the sword scars of the 3 sword maidens in the sword formation diagram. In other words, all 3 sword maidens would appear on the battlefield at the same time. Moreover, the sword formation diagram was still effective on the sword maidens. In other words, the 50% increase in all attributes and the 150% increase in attack against the demonic Yuan Ku still remained. The sword formation diagram was not very useful for low-level sword wielder. This was because even if the 3 sword maidens of Ancient Sword, Treasured Sword, and Famed Sword joined forces, they might not be able to defeat the sword maidens of Spirit Sword, Nether Sword, and Meteor Sword, Yuan Ku. However, if it was used by a high-level sword wielder, one could imagine the terrifying increase in strength. Back then, Jiyu Jin Liangcheng had been invincible largely because of this sword formation diagram. His immortal sword tier, spiritual sword tier, and famed sword tier all enjoyed the boost from the sword formation diagram. Then, they combined their powers to fight, and all the other sword bearers of his generation were completely subdued. Even the head of the Liu Nian aristocratic family of that generation was taught a lesson by Jiyu Jin Liangcheng. The sword formation diagram played a crucial role in the Battle of Jinling after Jiyu Jincheng became an emperor sword wielder. It was because of Jiyu Jincheng's emperor sword, immortal sword, and spiritual sword that he completely crushed the morale of Yuan Ku. However, ever since Jiyu Jincheng, the Stormy Waves sword sect had not used the second method to use the sword formation diagram. Instead, it had been hidden in the Stormy Waves sword sect's warehouse and had never appeared again. This was because the first method of using the sword formation diagram did not have any restrictions. Anyone who held it could use it, and it could be traded or exchanged at will. However, the second method was different. Once it was used, it would be bound to the sword wielder for life. Unless the sword wielder was dead or deleted his account, it would never leave the wielder's body. The reason why Guhan wanted to use the Emperor Sword level mission to bet on the sword formation diagram was to prepare for the 8 cities sword duel in a month's time. As long as he had the sword formation diagram and the 3 sword maidens fighting together, Guhan had the confidence to challenge famed sword level sword wielder like Wondrous Pen, who had more than 500,000 sword essences. Otherwise, Guhan would definitely not be able to defeat Wondrous Pen and the others. To Guhan, the sword essence oral liquid reward for the top sword was too far away. At some point on the second day, Ou Gen appeared in young Master Ba Yun's room. At that moment, young Master Ba Yun was still lying on his rocking chair. There was no change from how he had been talking to his disciple, Long Yu, more than 10 hours ago. Uncle Ba Yun seems to be really old. Ou Gen saw this and sighed in his heart. I just don't know if Long Yu, whom Uncle Ba Yun has nurtured, can take up Uncle Ba Yun's burden. Sect leader, you're here. Seeing Oyu Gen walk to his side, Ba Yun struggled to get up, but was pressed back down by Oyu Gen General Uncle Ba Yun. This is your house, not the Golden Hall of the sect. I'll call you Uncle Ba Yun like before. You can call me Little Oyu Gen like before. Alright, Little Oyu Gen is good. Little Oyu Gen is good, so intimate. It's like when you were young, when Di Zun was still alive. I called you Little Oyu Gen and you smiled so happily. But it's been 3 years. I haven't seen Little Oyu Gen smile from the bottom of your heart for 3 years, young Master Ba Yun said intermittently. Uncle Ba Yun. Oyu Gen touched the armrest of young Master Ba Yun's rocking chair. The rare emotion in her voice faded, and she once again returned to her cold and resolute tone. Why have you called me here? Yes. Young Master Ba Yun nodded. It's rare for me to sleep peacefully for more than 10 hours. When I woke up, I found out about Yaoguang Sword Faction's letter of challenge. May I ask, sect leader, how do you plan to deal with Yaoguang Sword Faction's letter of challenge? Deal with it? Do you even need to ask? Oyu Gen laughed coldly. When have I, the great waves of the storm, retreated in the face of such provocation? Since Yaoguang Sword Faction has sent such a huge fortune and an Emperor Sword mission to me, why wouldn't I accept it? Wouldn't that be letting down their good intentions? But sect leader, the bet includes Di Zun's 3 talents demon suppression sword formation. Ba Yun coughed and said with difficulty. I know, so what? An Emperor Sword mission is worth our 3 talents demon suppression sword formation. Oyu Gen said firmly. Uncle Ba Yun, what do you want to say to me? Could it be that you want to persuade me to reject this letter of challenge? No, we, the great waves of the storm, are already standing at the top of the mountain. We can only stand there and not take a step back. Of course, we can't reject this letter of challenge, but Ba Yun, I have a bad feeling about this. This time, I'm afraid impossible, we will definitely win this battle. Oyu Gen then asked, Uncle Ba Yun, your disciple Long Yu is not bad. He has already passed 100% progress. Although it's a little disappointing that he only got F this time, he's not far from S. Don't you have confidence in your disciple? Hehe, it's interesting. A few hours ago, I was still here telling that child Long Yu that 3 military governors cannot compare to one Long Yu. But now, I feel that this person is a little unfathomable. He doesn't seem like an 18-year-old at all. Instead, he's like an 81-year-old old man. Why? Oyu Gen's eyes lit up and immediately asked. Didn't he not even pass 60% last time? I'm afraid all of us old fellows have been deceived by that little fellow. That little fellow has probably already seen the correct path, while my dragon feather is still spinning in a daze. So, I hope that Sect Master can slow down and wait for me to instruct my dragon feather before starting this gamble. It's too late. Yujin let out a long sigh. 2 hours ago, both our teams entered the instance dungeon at the same time. I just contacted Dragon Feather. Their progress is already over 60%. It was more than 60%, which meant that Long Yu's team had successfully rescued Artoria and reached the first safe point. The most crucial mission points had passed, and it was almost impossible to reverse their failure. Young Master Ba Yun grabbed the armrest of the rocking chair with his old hand, as if he wanted to crush the chair. But soon, his palm loosened again. Sect Master, Ba Yun requests to use that chess piece. Young Master Ba Yun sighed. Use him? Isn't that a little too early? Uncle Ba Yun, you should know better than me how much effort we've put into inserting him. Oyu Gen was a little hesitant. Sect Master, as long as the chess piece is careful, it won't be exposed. Even if it's exposed, compared to the tripartite demon subduing sword formation and the Emperor Sword level starting mission, what is this chess piece? I understand. Uncle Ba Yun will handle this matter. I still have other things to do, so I'll take my leave first. After Oyu Gen finished speaking, He left young Master Ba Yoon's sword grave with crisp footsteps in his high heels. Let's rewind time to 2 hours ago. According to the agreement between the Stormy Waves Sword faction and the Alcade Sword faction, both parties entered the Instance Dungeon at the same time under the watchful eyes of the two sword sects. Then, both teams rushed into Terminal T3 at almost the same time. Then, they rushed out at high speed, found Ardwolf, and defeated Shu Da. At this stage, both teams' steps in the Instance Dungeon were exactly the same. However, in terms of time, the Storm Sword sect was 3 seconds faster than the Yaoguang Sword sect. This was not because of Guhan's command, but because of the strength of both sides. The Storm Sword sect was indeed strong. Moreover, after finding out about this bet, Long Yu had practically pulled out all of his abilities to command this battle. He wanted to create a result that the Admiral would never be able to surpass in his lifetime. After saving Ardwolf, Long Yu immediately asked Monian to carry Ardwolf on his back. The entire team rushed into Terminal T2 without hesitation. They did not waste even a second. However, on the other side, Guhan's team stayed in the parking lot of Terminal P2. For a whole hour, they did not move a single step towards Terminal T2. Chapter 201. An hour ago, after killing Shu Da, Steel Centipede took the lead and was about to rush into Terminal T2 like Dragon Feather and the others, but Guhan grabbed his collar. He even asked, "Steel Centipede, what are you going to do?" "Save Artoria, of course. We have to be quick. We can't let the great waves of storm get ahead of us," Steel Centipede said loudly. His whole body was filled with the desire to defeat the great waves of Storm Sword sect. "Don't worry. Going in first may not necessarily get any benefit." Guhan smiled slightly. "Actually, the key to our victory is now. I have another thing for you to do." "Another thing?" Steel Centipede scratched his head and looked at his other teammates. Hong Yu and the Yu siblings spread their hands, indicating that they did not know what Guhan was up to. Only Clever Pen froze for a few seconds. He showed an admiring expression to Guhan, but he did not say anything. Instead, he chose to keep his mouth shut and quietly waited for Guhan to say it himself. "Steel Centipede, do you remember the place where Ardwolf took you to get the decontamination equipment last time?" Guhan asked as he patted Steel Centipede on the shoulder. "Yes." Steel Centipede nodded. As an experienced driver, as long as he had been there once, he could easily find it again. He did not have to worry about driving the wrong way or finding the wrong place. "Very good. Steel Centipede and everyone go to Terminal T1 and find the raider. Then, go to Ardwolf's base and bring me the decontamination equipment." Guhan looked at the time in the system. "I'll give you an hour. Is it enough for you to go back and forth?" "Yes, it's enough." Steel Centipede scratched his head. "But isn't going to Ardwolf's base after we rescue Artoria? Why are we going now? You still don't understand." "What an idiot." Hong Yu knocked Steel Centipede's head and explained proudly, "I failed last time because I wasted too much time on the way to the Coyote's base. I didn't have enough time to rush back to the first safety point. This time, we'll retrieve the device before we rescue Artoria. Then we won't have to take a detour. Won't we be able to avoid the Nazi King's pursuit?" "I see." Steel Centipede and the Yu siblings were suddenly enlightened. In fact, the Instance Dungeon's time limit was 6:05 p.m. There were only 2 hours and 20 minutes left before the altar would open at 8:23 p.m. As long as he could rescue Artoria within the next 2 hours, everything would be fine. Based on previous experience, it would only take about an hour for them to enter Terminal T2 and rescue Artoria. This meant that they had an hour and 20 minutes to spare, which was more than enough for them to make a round trip to Ardwolf's base. With the device in hand, they would be able to save a lot of time from the Nazi King's pursuit. This was a perfect plan. Guhan had completely abandoned the rigid concept of a normal person's dungeon steps. Very creatively and intelligently, he had brought forward a step that was very short of time to be completed in the early stages of the dungeon. If it were an ordinary player, they would probably be racking their brains for a way to escape the clutches of the Nazi King after rescuing Artoria. But it was almost impossible. But military governor, if we do this, we'll probably be delayed a lot. After all, we'll have to take another detour. This way, our total time will be pulled apart from the great waves of storm. If they also clear the dungeon with an S rank, we'll lose to them even if we're also S rank, he said worriedly. Don't worry. If they want to get an S rank, they'll have to be like us. If the great waves of storm crashes into Terminal T2, we'll definitely win. The Kanglan waves, who had crashed into Terminal T2, had successfully arrived at Luban's college entrance examination venue. Then, after each member made a last-minute cramming for some subjects that they were responsible for, they successfully scored a passing score. It only took them a few minutes to kill the weak Chuanjin 7 masters. Repeating the previous steps, they used the soul-manipulating swords to control the members to break the dimensional magic circle. Then, Merlin appeared and Ardwulf woke up. Once again, the two sides stood in a confrontation. But this time, Long Yu had to make some changes. You didn't expect this, did you, Merlin? I, Ardwulf, am not dead. I'm still alive. You didn't expect this, did you? Ardwulf stood up and glared at Merlin, repeating the conversation he had last time. I really didn't expect you to still be alive. Ardwulf, I'm very happy that you're alive. Things are not what you think. I'm really helping Artoria. Help! From the moment Shudar appeared, I knew you were the mastermind behind the scenes. Merlin, Artoria, and I trusted you so much. Why did you betray us? Why? We won't write the repetitive and boring conversation. After Ardwulf and Merlin finished their argument, Merlin had no choice but to disappear. When Ardwulf was about to let Long Yu go to a higher place to remove the scabbard, Long Yu suddenly sneered. Mr. Ardwulf, is this scroll really poisonous? Long Yu, what do you mean? Hearing Long Yu's words, Ardwulf looked at Long Yu, dumbfounded. You don't believe me? Of course, it's the truth. That Merlin has been controlled by filth. Mr. Ardwulf, we've already come to this point. Can't you be more honest with me? Honest? Honest about what? Due to Long Yu's aura, Ardwulf unconsciously took 2 steps back. Xue Leixing, who was standing behind him, grabbed Ardwulf's shoulder blade. At the same time, the other 4 surrounded Ardwulf from all directions. Of course I'm honest. Have you been controlled by filth? Long Yu patted his head and said in annoyance. In the past few hours, I've been thinking about why the system gave me an F rating. Although my steps weren't flawless, they were perfect. Even if I missed some key steps and couldn't get an S rating, getting an A or B rating should be a matter of course. What are you talking about? I don't understand what you're saying. Sweat began to appear on Ardwulf's forehead. It's okay. You don't need to understand what I'm saying. Just listen. A strange expression appeared on Long Yu's face. That's exactly what I want. If I can get a grade F, then I, Long Yu, am wrong. I'm very, very, very wrong. I'm wrong from the most fundamental point of view. Then, what is the fundamental point of this dungeon? Of course, it's to rescue Artoria and bring her back to Swallow Capital City. Long Yu paused. To bring Yuan Ku Artoria, who has been controlled by filth, back to Swallow Capital City. But if I don't bring back Artoria, who has broken free from the control of filth and is completely controlled by it, wouldn't I be fundamentally wrong? Long Yu suddenly turned around, grabbed Ardwulf's head, and pulled him in front of him. He stared into Ardwulf's eyes. In other words, since I got an F rating, it's because I brought back Artoria, who is still controlled by filth. Am I right? Mr. Ardwulf, who is also controlled by filth. No, you're crazy, Dragonfeather. I'm not controlled by the filth. You promised me that we would save Artoria together, Dragonfeather. Ardwulf still clenched his teeth, refusing to admit that he was controlled by the filth. If I'm really controlled by filth, this is my territory. Why would I drag you guys into it and cause more trouble? Well, then, Mr. Ardwulf, do you dare to do one thing? Long Yu grabbed Ardwulf's head and pointed to the hilt of the sword that Ardwulf had ordered him to remove. Mr. Ardwulf, I'm afraid the reason you spent so much effort to trick us into coming here was to find a normal person to remove the scabbard, right? That scabbard, I'm afraid you guys who are controlled by filth can't even touch it. At the very least, it's a taboo for those below the level of flood, Yuan Ku. Am I right? If Mr. Aardwolf has been freed from filth's control, then why don't you touch the scabbard yourself? Do you dare to touch it? Sigh. Even this point has been exposed. Mr. Longyu, I'm afraid it was my biggest mistake to ask you to come here. Aardwolf smiled bitterly, and finally gave up on the meaningless pretense. Yes, you're right. I deliberately tricked you guys into coming here. I wanted to find a fool, but I didn't expect to find a smart guy like you. I worked so hard to pretend to be unconscious for dozens of minutes. I even lost Shudar's life. What a bad deal. At the same time, in the parking lot of P2, the rest of the team got into Steel Centipede's raiders and went to Aardwolf's base to look for the removal equipment. Guhan sat silently on the spot, guarding against the filth of Aardwolf. Mr. Military Governor, why are you still here? Aardwolf slowly woke up. Why aren't we going to save Artoria? Mr. Military Governor, we don't have much time. It's okay. My teammates have already gone to save Artoria. They entrusted me to protect you here. Mr. Aardwolf, without your secret base, even if we rescue Artoria, we can't remove the filth from her body, can we? Chapter 202. Of course, Guhan's teammates did not go to Terminal T2. They went to Aardwolf's base to get the filth removal equipment. Guhan was just deceiving Aardwolf and him. Less than 3 minutes later, the sound of a roaring engine rang through the parking lot. It was Steel Centipede driving the Predator back. Seeing Steel Centipede and the others getting off the Predator, Aardwolf stood up in surprise. He pointed at Guhan's nose and asked, "You? What do you mean? Didn't you say they went to Terminal T2? It's okay. Calm down." Guhan pressed Aardwolf's finger. They are indeed going to Terminal T2, but before they go to Terminal T2, they have to go somewhere else. For example, to get something that can help you return to normal. Speaking of this, Hongyu cooperated and removed the filth removal equipment from Aardwolf's base. Guhan took the equipment and showed it to Aardwolf. He smiled and said, "You should be very familiar with this thing. It's okay. When I remove the filth from your body, you will return to normal." "No, I am normal. I don't need to remove any filth." Aardwolf was so scared that he took a step back, but he immediately pounced on Guhan, trying to snatch the filth removal equipment from Guhan's hand. Unfortunately, with Guhan's movement skills, how could he let Aardwolf touch him? With just a gentle twist, he dodged Aardwolf's attack. Then, Steel Centipede and the others rushed forward and pressed Aardwolf to the ground. "Don't get excited, Mr. Aardwolf. I will help you return to normal right away." Guhan opened the cover of the filth removal equipment and cut his hand. Blood flowed down from Guhan's wrist like a spring and flowed into the filth removal equipment, just like what Aardwolf did last time. "How do you know how to use it?" When the Aardwolf saw how skillfully Guhan used the device, it was instantly shocked. It struggled even more intensely, but when it was suppressed by 5 powerful famed swordsmen, the Aardwolf could not move a single step. It could only watch as the device purified Guhan's blood into a faint yellow serum. Guhan tore open Aardwolf's clothes and found the hole in Aardwolf's chest. Under Aardwolf's desperate and creepy smile, Guhan poured all the pale yellow serum into the hole in Aardwolf's chest. The moment the serum was completely injected, the Aardwolf let out a heart-wrenching cry. Balls of reddish-purple flames burned from the Aardwolf's skin, but strangely, the flames did not burn the Aardwolf's skin. The Yu siblings, who were close to Aardwolf, didn't feel any heat. Instead, they felt a burst of cold. When the reddish-purple flames gradually extinguished from the Aardwolf's body, the Aardwolf gradually calmed down. Guhan looked at the time. It had been an hour since the start of the dungeon. "Tell me, what is the right way to save Artoria?" Longyu placed his sword on Aardwolf's neck. "If you don't want to be sucked away by the dimensional vortex, tell me how to save the real Artoria. The real way to remove the filth from her body. The real way to remove the filth." Facing the sword on his neck, Aardwolf couldn't help but laugh. "It's useless. Do you think I'll tell you why? Hurry up and kill me. Just kill me. I won't kill you, But don't think that I have no way to make you tell me the truth. Long Yu sneered and whispered some instructions to Schwerleixing. Then, he picked up his famed sword and stabbed it into the Aardwolf's stomach. Ah! Aardwolf let out a grunt, but it didn't faze Schwerleixing. Instead, sword after sword stabbed into Aardwolf's abdomen. After stabbing more than a dozen times, Aardwolf's blood was basically drained. He was already in a precarious situation. One more strike and he could return to the dimensional vortex. Captain, it's done. He only has less than 0.5% HP left. If we attack him again, he'll really die, Schwerleixing said. He had used his ancient sword-grade sword lady to stab Aardwolf. That was how he managed to control his HP to 0.5%. 0.5%. That's enough. That's enough. Long Yu stabbed the soul-manipulating demon's sword into his body again. Then, he extended his soul-manipulating demon hand and stabbed it into Aardwolf's temple. Long Yu's intentions were clear. Since he couldn't hear the truth from Aardwolf's mouth, he would go deep into Aardwolf's soul and interrogate it. Fortunately, Long Yu's ancient sword-grade sword lady had chosen the soul-manipulating demon sword. Otherwise, he really wouldn't be able to do anything to Aardwolf. The success rate of using the soul-manipulating demon sword to control Yuan Ku's soul depended on his own strength and how weak the other party's vitality was. In terms of strength, Aardwolf was a flood dragon. Long Yu, who was also a famed sword grade, did not have absolute confidence in suppressing Aardwolf. That was why Long Yu had Schwerleixing lower Aardwolf's HP to the lowest possible level. Then, he used the soul-manipulating demon hand to control Aardwolf's soul. However, Long Yu couldn't directly read the Aardwolf's memories. He had to get the answers he wanted out of the Aardwolf's mouth one sentence at a time. What reassured Long Yu was that once he was successfully controlled by the soul mastery demon hand, then the Aardwolf's every word would be the truth. Long Yu didn't have to worry about hearing a single lie. Seeing Aardwolf being controlled by his soul-manipulating demon hand, Long Yu couldn't help but feel a little regretful. If he had thought of this last time, or if he had been suspicious of Aardwolf and directly used the soul-manipulating demon sword to control him, perhaps he would have been able to clear the entire S-rank dungeon yesterday, and he wouldn't have had to come here again today. But on second thought, this might not be a good thing. If he had succeeded yesterday, then why would that military governor foolishly gamble such a large sum of wealth with the great waves of Azure waves? System notification: Aardwolf Yuan Ku has been affected by the blood loss effect of the broken blood sword. He will lose 3 HP per second for 30 seconds. Schwerleixing was a little embarrassed when he heard this system notification. Sorry, Captain. It seems that the blood loss effect was triggered at the last moment. Aardwolf only has less than 90 HP left. I'm afraid he won't be able to last for 30 seconds. I understand. Long Yu's heart trembled. He knew that he had to pick the main points and quickly finish his questions before Aardwolf died. Long Yu, Aardwolf, why did you lie to us to save Artoria? Aardwolf, because the Martyr's Palace hoped that a Yuan Ku would be able to gain the trust of the humans and enter the human world to obtain information for the filth. At the appropriate time, they would deactivate Yang Jing's defense system and work together with the Martyr's Palace to destroy Yang Jing. So they had me pretend to remove the filth and trick you into coming to Xianyang Airport. Long Yu, then is Artoria infected by the filth? Aardwolf, infected by the filth. Aardwolf replied with a dull look in his eyes. But the moment Artoria was infected by the filth, she activated the Wind King array and used her scabbard to collect the dimensional energy around her to resist the filth's invasion. Long Yu, what will happen if the scabbard is unsheathed? Aardwolf, once the scabbard is unsheathed, the Wind King array will dissipate, and Artoria will not be able to resist the filth's invasion. When she wakes up again, she will be completely controlled by the filth. Long Yu asked, what's going on with the magic that binds Artoria there? How can we get rid of the binding magic? Aardwolf, it was Merlin who bound Artoria here. He didn't want Artoria to be controlled by the filth again, but he couldn't really go against the filth's will. So, he used magic to bind Artoria here. The spell that binds Artoria is a spell that Merlin cast with the power of the Wind King array. Unless we destroy the Wind King array or use Merlin's magic scroll, there's no other way to release Artoria. Long Yu, what's the difference between using a magic scroll and taking out a scabbard? Aardwolf, Merlin's magic scroll can remove the binding magic and solidify part of the Wind King array's power into Artoria's brain. When Artoria leaves the Wind King array, the filth can only control Artoria's body, but it can't control Artoria's consciousness, turning her into a madwoman who fights based on instinct and kills anyone she sees. If the scabbard is removed, Artoria will be like me, allowing the filth to control all her organs, including her brain. She will become an intelligent puppet of the filth. Long Yu, how can we remove the filth from Artoria's body? Aardwolf, there's only one way. Find my removal equipment and pour a normal person's blood into it, purify it into serum, and pour it into Artoria's body through the hole in her chest. Then, the filth in Artoria's body can be removed. But it must be fast. Once the Wind King array is destroyed, we won't be able to pour the serum into Artoria before she wakes up, and she won't be able to remove the filth. Long Yu, where's your removal equipment? It's at. Aardwolf gave an address in great detail. Captain, 30 seconds is almost up. Captain, we're running out of time, Xue Lei Xing, who had been paying attention to Aardwolf's HP, suddenly said. Why do I feel that Merlin isn't controlled by the filth? Long Yu asked the last question, which was something he really wanted to understand. Because no matter how he looked at it, Merlin's actions seemed to be protecting Artoria from being completely controlled by the filth. This was almost the complete opposite of the filth's will. Unfortunately, Aardwolf's HP was completely empty at this time, and he could no longer answer this question. He fell to the ground, and a dimensional vortex appeared out of thin air. Not long after, Aardwolf's corpse was taken away. Remove the scabbard, bring Artoria, and we'll leave immediately. Chapter 203. When Dragonfeather and the others had already left Terminal T2 with Artoria and were preparing to head to Coyote's base, Guhan was still sitting in the P2 parking lot, chatting with Coyote, who had woken up once again. Mr. Military Governor, although this is the first time we've met, I admire you very much. How did you know that my body was actually controlled by filth just now? How did you find my base and retrieve the vital filth removal equipment? There are some special reasons for this. Forgive me for not being able to tell you directly. Of course, Guhan would not tell Coyote. This was because this was his third time entering the dungeon, and he had only discovered this through his previous 2 observations. Alright, since Mr. Military Governor is unwilling to tell me, I won't ask Mr. Military Governor anymore. It's just that there's not much time left before 8:23. Mr. Military Governor, we can't delay any longer. Hurry up and follow me down there to rescue Artoria, Coyote said anxiously. Alright, let's go. Guhan nodded and led Coyote and his teammates towards Terminal T2. As they walked, Guhan asked again, Mr. Coyote, what is this filth? Why is it able to control your mind and turn you into a completely different person from the inside out? Guhan asked, pretending to be nonchalant. This was actually the question he was most concerned about. How should I put it? Until now, I still don't know what filth is. The name filth was given to me by myself after I woke up. Coyote sighed. When I was still in my own world, I didn't even know how I came to this world. I only knew that the Holy Grail that had originally disintegrated suddenly reappeared, and the Holy Grail War spread to the entire world. Mags and Einherjars all over the world fought madly for the Holy Grail. In the end, the Holy Grail was shattered once again, and the black mud that flowed out destroyed the entire earth. When I thought I had died in the final battle, when I opened my eyes again, I was already in this world. Now that I think about it carefully, perhaps the filth had already silently infiltrated our bodies at the start of the Super Holy Grail War, causing all of us to lose our rationality, and the only thought left in our minds was to seize the Holy Grail. And after coming to this world, the filth only left in our minds was the thought of destroying the humans of this world. Then, due to a coincidence, I broke free from the control of the filth. After reflecting and recalling the memories of when I was possessed by the filth, now that I think about it, the filth seemed to be more like a kind of ravings that hid in my subconscious, constantly giving me orders and forcing me to obey them. I see. Guhan nodded. Then, why did some Yuan Ku not seem to be controlled by filth, and they even showed sincere kindness to me? The Yuan Ku that Guhan mentioned who showed sincere kindness to him was naturally Lu Ban. From Lu Ban, Guhan could feel a master's love for his disciples and grandchildren. This love could not be faked. I'm not too sure either. Aardwolf also revealed a confused expression when he heard Guhan's question. I heard that powerhouses above the Eon rank have a completely different way of coexisting with filth. A way that I don't understand at all. They are no longer very determined to destroy you humans. For example, Liu Xuanda, the Ren King of the 10 Kings. Although he is terrifyingly powerful, he and his 2 sworn brothers only stay in their own kingdom in the divine realm of Einherjar. They have no interest in conquering this world. That's right, Aardwolf, how did you make this filth removal device? Can you tell me how to make it? If this removal device can be mass-produced, I believe that we humans will definitely win the final victory. Aardwolf, who had been answering the question without reservation, suddenly fell silent. No matter how Guhan asked, he refused to say a word. The group arrived at the entrance of Terminal T2. Military Governor, let's go. Let's go in and save Artoria. Aardwolf took the lead and rushed into the terminal. Come back first. You will alert the enemy. Guhan grabbed Aardwolf's arm and assigned the battle plan to break into Terminal T2 from each entrance. Because it was already the 3rd time they had entered the dungeon, everyone's hands and feet were quite nimble and they easily passed the college entrance exam. Gu Han still passed the history exam with full marks, and the other team members' results also improved slightly. Although it was still the minimum score for the 2nd dungeon, Gu Han once again obtained a token of the Juzi sword and a brocade pouch with full marks as a reward. The team successfully defeated the rank-breaking camp. Just like Long Yu's team, they brought Aardwolf into the dimensional altar. However, when Long Yu brought Aardwolf in, Aardwolf was unconscious, but when Guhan brought him in, Aardwolf was completely awake. Artoria, are you okay? Aardwolf called out Artoria's name as soon as he saw her on the altar. He wanted to pounce on her, but Guhan grabbed his shoulder. Do you want to die? Don't you see the dimensional array on the arena? I'm sorry. Only then did Aardwolf notice the mysterious runes around the altar. It was not that he did not know about the existence of the dimensional circle, but his concern for Artoria overwhelmed his attention to other things. After successfully dispelling the dimensional array around Artoria, Aardwolf wanted to rush up again, but he was pulled back by Guhan. In short, Guhan did not let Aardwolf touch Artoria. The reason was that Merlin had appeared. Merlin, how have you been? Seeing Merlin appear, Aardwolf took the initiative to greet him. Aardwolf, you actually came back alive, and even brought back reinforcement. Merlin looked at Aardwolf with interest. Not bad, you actually got rid of the filth again. The Martyr's Palace calculated everything, but it still made a mistake. Unlike Long Yu's previous 2 encounters where Aardwolf and Merlin were full of gunpowder, the Aardwolf that Guhan brought over was talking to Merlin like a friend, without the slightest anger. Merlin. After a very friendly conversation, Aardwolf took a deep breath and said, Merlin, although you're in charge of guarding Artoria, I still want to save her. Please don't stop me, please. Aardwolf, do you know how you could so easily find the human swordsman to send a message, and how you could easily divert the 3 kings away, allowing the human swordsman to arrive here so smoothly? Merlin slapped Aardwolf's head hard. Use your brain, Aardwolf. Because the Martyr's Palace wants Artoria to return to the human city. Because the Martyr's Palace wants to use Artoria to destroy all of Yangjing City. Now, Artoria's body has been invaded by the filth once again. If she hadn't used the Wind King's circle to block the filth's invasion before she fainted, the one in front of you now would be the same Artoria who was controlled by the filth like me. Moreover, because this is the 2nd time she's been infected, I'm afraid she'll be completely controlled by filth and act according to the Martyr's Palace's will. She'll no longer be the Night King Artoria filled with humility, honor, sacrifice, heroism, compassion, soul, city, and justice. But won't it be fine if we just get rid of the filth in her body? Merlin's words did not make Aardwolf give up. He clenched his fists firmly. We still have a chance, Merlin. Now that we have the suppression of the Wind King magic circle, my removal equipment, and enough blood supply from the native human swordsman, it's enough, Merlin, enough for us to get rid of the filth in Artoria's body. You. Merlin's hands trembled for a long time, but he was finally convinced by Ardwulf's words. Originally, I planned to completely seal Artoria's consciousness so that her consciousness won't become a puppet of filth. But since you insist, I'll believe you this time. After saying that, Merlin turned around and waved his hand. The magical restraint that bound Artoria's hands disappeared into thin air, and Artoria stood on the altar. The filth has infiltrated Artoria's body for as long as a day. You'd better remove the filth under the suppression of the Wind King magic circle. Otherwise, you won't be able to remove it completely. After a long time, the filth will return. Understood. Ardwulf nodded vigorously. Merlin let out a long sigh, and his figure disappeared from the dimensional altar. Mr. Military Governor, please make some more serum. I'll go check on Artoria. Ardwulf asked Guhan to use his own blood to make a serum that could remove the filth while he rushed to Artoria's side to take a good look at the person he had been thinking about day and night. Wait. Guhan pressed down on Ardwulf's shoulder again, preventing him from approaching Artoria. Mr. Ardwulf, there's something I want to confirm. What is it? Ardwulf was stunned and asked. We want to confirm if you've really removed the filth, and if you're putting on a show for us, Guhan said dryly. So you're still doubting me? Ardwulf's expression was very bitter, but he still nodded. All right, how do you want to verify it? I'll fully cooperate with you. Do it. At Guhan's command, before Ardwulf could react, a long sword with an invisible blade plunged into Ardwulf's body. The next moment, a delicate little sword slashed at Ardwulf's neck. Ardwulf's head flew into the air just like that. The magic pen and Hongyu moved at the same time. With the blessing of the magic pen's 500,000 swords, a casual slash had more than 10,000 attack power. In addition to Hongyu's final slash, Ardwulf did not even feel the slightest pain before his head was separated from his body. He could not be more dead. I'm sorry, Mr. Ardwulf, we can't lose. Guhan looked at Ardwulf's body and took out the brocade pouch that Lu Ban had given him from his dimensional pocket. Opening the brocade pouch, there was only a note with a short poem written on it. Samsara collects the filth, the pure body exists in the world. Chapter 204. Guhan had secretly informed Clever Pen and Hongyu about killing Coyote through the team channel. Guhan had not informed Steel Centipede and the Yu siblings. Therefore, when Coyote died a few seconds later, Steel Centipede and the Yu siblings reacted in shock. They had no idea what was happening in front of them. Admiral, why did you kill him? Steel Centipede glanced at Ardwulf's corpse. It was tragic. He had died a tragic death. This poem is the reward for the mission that Lu Ban gave me. It's the one that I got full marks for. Guhan handed the piece of paper with the words Samsara collects the filth, and the pure body exists in the world written on it to Steel Centipede and the Yu siblings. What does this mean? The Steelali's IQ wasn't high enough, so she couldn't understand the meaning of the poem written on the note at all. Samsara is a dimensional vortex, and the pure body is a clean body, Guhan explained. The meaning of this poem is that the dimensional vortex will absorb the filth, and only the pure body will not be absorbed. Lu Ban is telling me how to check if Yuan Ku is infected by filth. If his corpse is absorbed by the dimensional vortex, then he is infected by filth. On the contrary, the filth in his body has been removed. Upon hearing Guhan's explanation, Steel Centipede and the Yu siblings hurriedly took another look. It had been more than 10 seconds since Coyote's death. His corpse was still splattered with blood, and there were no signs of the dimensional vortex appearing. Under normal circumstances, the dimensional vortex would appear in less than 3 seconds and take away Yuan Ku's corpse. But isn't Coyote's corpse still here? This means that the filth in his body has been removed. He is a normal person. We killed the wrong person, Steel Centipede yelled. He felt that he had let down the poor Coyote. If we don't kill him, how will we know if we killed the wrong person? Magic Pen continued Steel Centipede's words. The military governor's meaning is clear. Aardwolf is useless now. His life or death is meaningless to us. On the contrary, we have to confirm that what Aardwolf told us just now is the truth. Only by killing him can we know whether the solution to save Artoria is real or not. Do you understand? Alright, we still have some loose ends to take care of. Steel Centipede, Coyote's corpse can't be absorbed by the dimensional vortex. I'll have to trouble you to drag his corpse to another tunnel and hide it. Don't let Artoria know that I killed Coyote when she wakes up. Your sword maiden can use monstrous waves, right? I don't want Artoria to see any clues and ruin our plan. After killing Coyote, Guhan began to instruct his team members to destroy the corpse skillfully, as if Guhan often did such things. Steel Centipede and Yusiu, who had been assigned the task, were very unhappy. This was normal. No one liked to destroy corpses. This was the first time Steel Centipede and Yusiu had done such a thing. In the world of Sword Maiden Online, Yuan Ku would be absorbed by the dimensional vortex after his death, so there was no need to worry about the corpse. Military Governor, there's no need for this. Let's just say that Coyote died in the final battle. Artoria won't know the truth anyway. Steel Centipede began to complain after dragging Coyote's headless corpse for a while. Don't forget, we carry half of the wealth of the Yaoguang sword faction on our shoulders. I don't want to cause the entire dungeon to fail because of this oversight. Even if there's a 1 in 100,000 chance, Guhan said coldly. Hearing Guhan mention the Yaoguang sword faction, Steel Centipede had nothing to say. He could only resign himself to his fate and carry the corpse. Although he was still unconvinced and felt that it was just a waste of time. In fact, after this dungeon was officially opened, countless players who entered with guides did not care about the problem of cleaning up the corpse, which led to Artoria discovering Coyote's death after waking up. She then summoned Merlin and asked if Coyote had followed the players in safely. Thus, the entire team was wiped out by Artoria's angry curry stick. From this, it could be seen that Guhan had foresight. Military Governor should have noticed something wrong with Coyote the last time. Steel Centipede and the Yu siblings went to destroy the corpse, while Guhan began to inject his blood into the extraction device again, preparing to create a purifying serum to save Artoria. At this time, he suddenly heard Yu Sikong ask in the communication channel. I think we should be open and honest with each other. I don't like the feeling of being kept in the dark. The moment Yu Sikong asked the question through the party channel, everyone's attention was focused on the party channel. They wanted to know how much this military governor was hiding from them. I've always suspected that Great Waves of Kanglan has planted a mole among us, so I didn't explain it to you at first. But now that things have come to this, I don't need to hide it from you. Guhan did not hide his suspicion of a spy. Yes, I found out last time that Coyote has been infected by filth. Last time, before Coyote went into a coma to fight against the filth, he told us that if we succeeded, he should wait for us at Terminal T1. This was a hint that if we didn't wait at Terminal T1, then he was no longer in a normal state. In fact, he rushed to the door of Terminal T2. At that time, I began to suspect that Coyote had been infected by filth. I got this note from Lu Ban when I got a full score in the last exam. I wanted to kill Aardwolf to see if he had been contaminated by filth. That's why I wanted to kill Aardwolf to see if he had been contaminated by filth at that time. So after Coyote broke up with us at the gas station, I asked Hongyu to follow behind Coyote and kill him. In the end, his body was absorbed by the dimensional vortex. This means that he had been completely infected by filth at that time. In fact, when we went to his base, when Coyote entered the base alone to get the removal equipment, I was very suspicious. So I asked Hongyu to enter stealth mode and followed Coyote into his base. I don't know if you remember, but after Coyote left, Hongyu immediately left on the excuse of going to the toilet. And Hongyu came back a little later than Coyote because she searched the base and found something interesting. Hongyu, you went to the base this time and brought it back. Show it to everyone. Understood. Hongyu took out a notebook from her dimensional pocket and said with a smile, this is a notebook hidden in a very secret place in Coyote's base. It contains records of Coyote's research on the removal of filth. The specific use of the removal equipment is recorded in this notebook. It's clearly written here that only the blood of the sword-bearers in this world that hasn't been contaminated by the filth can remove the filth from the infected Yuan Qi. Also, there are requirements for the degree of filth infection and the bloodline of the sword-bearer. It has nothing to do with the sword essence of the sword-bearer. It seems to be a natural bloodline, but it's not clear. It seems that Ardwolf doesn't know what bloodline is either. There's one more thing. Gu Han used the red jade to add a sentence. The notebook mentioned that the first time you get infected, the success rate of removing the filth is the highest. If you get infected for the second time, the success rate will be reduced by about 5 times. Originally, I wasn't sure why the notebook specifically said this, but now I understand. Only by borrowing the power of the Wind King barrier can the success rate of the second time be increased. I don't know if Long Yu from the Great Waves of the Sea has realized this. Captain, I found it. I found the removal equipment. Take a look and see if this is it. Outside Coyote's base, Monian ran out of the base with the removal equipment and handed it to Long Yu. This should be it. There's no mistake. Schwerleixing followed Monian out, holding a notebook in his hand. Captain, there are detailed instructions on how to use the removal equipment. I read the description. This is what Monian found. Long Yu took the notebook from Schwerleixing and read it carefully. He let out a long sigh of relief. Looks like we were right this time. This is the right way to remove the filth from Artoria. We succeeded. Yes. Hearing Dragon Feather's decisive blow, the team members all revealed happy smiles. This time, they had finally found the right path. Victory was in sight. The people of Yaoguang's sword sect were doomed. After more than 20 minutes of waiting, Guhan's blood was finally purified into serum. Guhan carefully lifted Artoria's body and pulled open her wedding dress, revealing her beautiful legs, which were as white as freshly peeled chicken heads. He found the cave at the bottom of the hill and poured the entire bottle of serum into Artoria's body. Just like when he poured the serum into Coyote, the unconscious Artoria let out a cry. Then, her body burned with light blue flames. This meant that the filth was being removed by Guhan's serum. When the light blue flames gradually dissipated, Artoria let out a moan and slowly opened her eyes. Guhan noticed that, unlike the dark black pupils when Artoria had first woken up, her pupils were now green like jewels. Chapter 205. It was you who saved me. Where is Coyote? Artoria, whose eyes were as lively as spring water, stood up from the altar. She looked at Guhan with confusion in her eyes, and when she mentioned Coyote, there was some concern in her eyes. This made Guhan feel slightly uncomfortable, just like the legendary feeling of jealousy. Apologies, Great King Arthur, Miss Artoria, Mr. Coyote is dead. When we arrived, he had already died in the hands of Shudar. We came a step too late and couldn't save him. Guhan lied through his teeth. Dead. When Artoria heard the news of Coyote's death, she looked a little sad, but not to the extent of sadness. Guhan didn't know, and this confused Guhan again. What was Coyote's position in the real Artoria's heart? What exactly was going on between them? Sacrifice is a knight's virtue. Coming to this world was a mistake, and returning by sacrificing oneself is also a knight's honor. Artoria stood up, and the snow-white wedding dress she was wearing disappeared in an instant. Don't be too excited, beast blood is boiling. In less than 0.1 seconds, a set of azure armor appeared on Artoria's body. As the core of the Wind King matrix, the scabbard inserted into the wall shook violently and automatically flew down from the wall, falling back into Artoria's hands. Miraculously, when the scabbard returned, Artoria's sword of the lake also returned to the scabbard. Let's go. Artoria waved her hand, and a king's demeanor emerged, or rather, a domineering aura emanated from her body. For a moment, the team members felt that Artoria was their king, and they should follow their king, and go through fire and water without hesitation. Let's go. Guhan shouted after Artoria. Only then did everyone agree and leave this dimensional altar that was full of all kinds of deceitful thoughts. When Guhan's team officially left Terminal T2 and was about to head towards a safe point, Long Yu's team just happened to encounter their own trouble. Hitler, who was shouting scum, chased after them. The script was the same as the last time Guhan's team faced the Nazi king. The sober Artoria would go up against the Nazi king and then trick the Nazi king into accepting her sword of victory and the promised sword. The Nazi king still fell for her trick. He casually released the Third Reich form of the Third Reich and forcefully took on Artoria's sword of victory and the promised sword. Since he had failed to show off, he could only use the main cannon normally. Yesterday, Guhan knew that the filth in Artoria's body had not been expelled, so he decided not to waste time in this dungeon. Instead, he escaped from the dungeon through the Marauder's exit. But it was apparent that Long Yu didn't intend to do so. Under his command, all the members swarmed forward and launched a fierce attack on the Third Reich, which only had one main cannon left. The Great Waves of the Sea was indeed a first-class team. Although the process was thrilling and difficult, the Nazi king's last main cannon was ultimately destroyed by Gentleman's sword. The Nazi king, who had lost all his weapons, could only watch as Long Yu carried Artoria into his Marauder and left the battlefield for the first safe point. Scum. I didn't know that I had the talent to be an actor. Back then, I couldn't have drawn, but I chose to act. Scum. After Long Yu left, the Third Reich, which was theoretically destroyed and could not move, let out a hiss. After a complex mechanical transformation, it turned back into a tiger tank and retreated from the road they came from. I can feel the Nazi king's power. Artoria, who was sitting upright on the Marauder, leaned on her sword of the lake as if she was a king sitting on her throne. He already knows that the filth in my body has been completely removed. He's now approaching us at 500 kilometers per hour. He's here to kill me. What? 500 kilometers per hour? Steel Centipede almost spat blood on the steering wheel. Wasn't he only going at 200 kilometers per hour the last time he chased us? What last time? Artoria was confused. Did you guys get chased by the Nazi king before? Something like that. I met him once before. Guhan's casual nonsense managed to fool Artoria. He could not possibly tell Artoria that this was the third time that he, Guhan, had come to save her. The 200 kilometers per hour that you guys are talking about should be the maximum speed of Hitler's First Reich. Artoria thought that Guhan and the others had really met Hitler before, so she explained, 500 kilometers per hour is the speed of his Second Reich Swallow jet. He'll catch up to us in 30 minutes at most. Then, Artoria, do you still have the strength to use Excalibur to destroy the Nazi king's Third Reich? Guhan asked. I still have the strength to use Excalibur. Artoria nodded, but then she asked Guhan in confusion, but why do you think that my Excalibur can destroy his Third Reich? That's a well-defended helicarrier, the ultimate weapon of the Atlanteans. Unless I use Excalibur more than 10 times, there's no way I can destroy it. I understand. Guhan did not say anything. It seemed that in the previous dungeon, the corrupted Artoria and Hitler were singing a two-man show and putting on a play. The 3 universe levels, Yuan Ku's pursuit, were all the same. It was just a means to make the humans not suspect that Artoria had been corrupted again. In that case, as long as the players were willing to escape, there was no way they could not escape the pursuit. Don't turn. Just go straight. The law will not judge the brave and fearless. After the sinful blood sword immortal stalled Hammurabi, Long Yu used the same escape method as last time and narrowly avoided Hammurabi's meteor judgment, successfully escaping from Hammurabi's pursuit. After Long Yu and the others escaped for more than 30 minutes, Hammurabi, who had been trembling, suddenly shouted after fighting with the sinful blood sword immortal's sword lady. Aya, I'm injured. The sinful blood sword immortal's sword lady's unintentional slash somehow managed to land on Hammurabi's body. Hammurabi yelled and instantly distanced himself from the sinful blood sword immortal. Sinful blood, just you wait. This king will remember this debt. We are not done yet. After saying this, Hammurabi disappeared without a trace. He was even faster than the speed at which he chased after them. Sigh, compared to Hitler, Hammurabi's acting skills were obviously too lacking. He was too exaggerated. If Long Yu's battle was said to be a thrilling battle, but in reality, It was a battle without any ripples. On the other hand, on Guhan's side, the Nazi king had clearly not caught up yet, but the battle had already begun. The Nazi king is very close to us. He will meet us in less than 25 minutes. Sitting on the uncomfortable leather seat of the raider, Artoria felt like she was sitting on a throne. She calmly pointed out the distance between her and the Nazi king. It's over. We won't make it in time. Even if I drive at full speed, I won't be able to reach the first safe point in 25 minutes. Steel Centipede wailed. Although he was a little narrow-minded, he was still an unyielding man. Even he felt despair. 25 minutes. Chimph, that's enough. Facing such a dangerous situation, Guhan did not seem to care. He opened his personal terminal and sent a map to Steel Centipede. Steel Centipede, drive here. Guhan pointed at a certain point on the map to Steel Centipede and asked him to drive to that location. What's here? Is it a safe point? Steel Centipede quickly looked at the map and found that the location was blank. There was only a simple name marked there. There were no other markings. Why are we going there? Steel Centipede asked, then shouted, there's nothing here. It's a dead end. We can't drive here. We can't. I told you to drive here. So drive here. Guhan's voice was even louder than Steel Centipede's. Steel Centipede, I am the captain. I told you to drive here, so drive here. Chapter 206. Sitting in the hovercraft, Long Yu looked at Siping City on the map that was getting closer and closer. Only then did he let out a long sigh of relief. As long as he met up with the Spirit Sword level swordsman team in Siping City, he would definitely be able to obtain the final victory. In the entire instance, Long Yu had already confidently accelerated his advancement speed to the limit. He had also seen through all the tricks and traps in the entire instance. He, Long Yu, would definitely win this gamble. Long Yu, do you think you've already won? Just when Long Yu felt that everything was going well, a reprimanding and angry voice sounded in his mind. Long Yu's expression changed greatly. The owner of this voice was clearly his master, 8 Cloud's young master. Master, why did you directly contact your disciple through the Fallen Hero Dagger? Didn't you swear not to use the Fallen Hero Dagger again? Long Yu was shocked to hear his master's voice. As mentioned before, in an instance, all contact with other players was generally cut off. Only some special equipment could allow a player in the instance to contact a specific person outside. This special equipment was the Fallen Hero Dagger. It was very rare in the game, and there were less than 60 Sword Maiden's equipment. There were a total of 3 sets of this Fallen Hero Dagger, and 2 of them were in the hands of Great Blue Waves. The Fallen Hero Dagger wasn't a single piece of equipment, but 2 pieces of equipment that matched each other. Players who held one of them could contact each other through the Fallen Hero Dagger, no matter what skills, formations, shielding, or even the dimensional wall. So far, the Fallen Hero Dagger had never lost contact, whether it was in real life or in the game. 10 years ago, because of an unforgettable incident, 8 Cloud's young master swore never to use the Fallen Hero Dagger to contact others again. But Long Yu never thought that today, 8 Cloud's young master would actually make an exception. Silly disciple, Master wants to ask you, where did you remove the filth from King Arthur? 8 Cloud's young master hurriedly asked. In the Marauder's carriage. Master, Long Yu was in a hurry, so I removed the filth from King Arthur in the carriage. Long Yu was stunned. Was he wrong? He shouldn't have removed the filth from the carriage. Silly. 8 Cloud's young master scolded. Master wants to ask you again. Along the way, have you ever been in a life-threatening situation? It's not a dangerous situation that doesn't look safe, it's a dangerous situation that could kill you in the next second. No. Master. No. Long Yu started to panic. He wasn't stupid. When he heard his master's questions, he vaguely felt that he had made a grave mistake. Foolish disciple. Foolish disciple. How did I teach such a foolish disciple? Young Master Ba Yun kept calling him a silly disciple, showing the pain in his heart. Just now, the chess piece sent over the process of military governor clearing the instance dungeon through the other pair of fallen hero sword heads. Listen and see how he did it. Next, young Master Ba Yun explained the entire process of Guhan's instance dungeon in detail, including removing the equipment, then removing the filth from the Ardwolves, then killing the Ardwolves, then removing the filth from King Arthur under the suppression of the Wind King's matrix. He also told Long Yu about the full score brocade pouch, the notebook, and other details. Just the narration alone took up to 10 minutes. During these 10 minutes, Long Yu was sweating profusely. He was so terrified that he didn't know what was going on. Only now did he realize that the Artoria beside him was still the Artoria who had been contaminated by the filth. Naturally, if he sent this Artoria over, he would still receive an F-grade evaluation. It would be impossible for him to get any higher. What was even more frightening was that even now, Long Yu still realized that he was wrong. Even though there was less than an hour until the end of the instance dungeon, it was all too late. Long Yu had no way of reversing everything. Long Yu really couldn't think of any way to change this result. I've lost. I've lost. Dragon Feather suddenly knelt on the hovercraft, scaring Artoria and his two teammates. Because Long Yu was communicating with young Master Yakumo through brainwaves, the others didn't hear the conversation between Long Yu and his master. They only noticed that Long Yu's expression was becoming more and more unsightly. It was so unsightly that it looked like he was about to cry. I've lost. I've lost. Long Yu was like a gambler who had lost everything. He had lost everything that could support him and knelt on the ground like a zombie. I've lost. It's over. 3 Demon Suppression Sword Formation. Emperor Sword Quest. It's all over. I've lost. I've completely lost. Captain, what's wrong, Captain? Did something happen? Seeing Long Yu's sudden behavior, his two teammates, Gentleman and Fair Lady, pulled on Long Yu's arm and asked him what had happened. However, Long Yu closed his eyes and remained silent, completely ignoring Gentleman and Fair Lady. Because at that moment, Long Yu was still being lectured by his master. Disciple, are you afraid? Are you desperate? Could it be that you've already knelt down and accepted your failure? Young Master Yakumo, who was on the other side of the fallen flower sword, was roaring. His voice was like a loud alarm bell, causing Long Yu's chaotic mind to suddenly calm down. His mind, which had been muddled and could no longer think, began to think again. No, Master, I haven't knelt down. I haven't failed. I still have a chance. Long Yu's knees, which had been kneeling on the floor of the hovercraft, retracted, and his butt sat back down. All right, disciple. Tell me, what other chances do you have? Young Master Yakumo's voice sounded gratified. He could feel that calmness and wisdom had returned to his disciple's mind. We've failed this time, but that doesn't mean we've lost the bet. We can start all over again. Long Yu's expression was frozen like mercury. I'll immediately leave the instance dungeon's exit and start all over again. You want to start all over again? Young Master Yakumo's voice sounded even more gratified. Clearly, Long Yu's answer was correct. Or perhaps, he was thinking the same thing. However, young Master Yakumo asked, you can start all over again, but what about Yaoguang Sword faction? What about that military governor? They are already on the right path. They were slower than you to begin with and have yet to pass the first safe point. However, once you start all over again, they will be in front of you. The honor of being the first to clear an S-rank mission and all the bets will be theirs. You will still be drawing water with a sieve. No, Master, I will still win. After saying that, Long Yu abruptly opened his eyes, revealing a vicious expression. Since we, the Great Azure Waves, have to start all over again, then Yaoguang Sword faction can start all over again with us. Master, didn't the chess piece report that Yaoguang Sword faction is being chased by King Nazui? Then we should help the Nazi king. Master, this disciple requests to use that chess piece. Let that chess piece send the Yaoguang Sword faction, that military governor, and the others to hell together. As long as 1 or 2 of them die in the instance dungeon, then those who die won't be able to come online for 3 days. Coupled with the chess piece that left, this disciple believes that no matter how capable Yaoguang Sword faction is, they won't be able to form a new team in a short period of time. That way, victory will still be in our hands. But this way, We'll lose the chess piece that we spent so much effort to place in Yaoguang sword faction. Long Yu, you know how this chess piece managed to infiltrate the core of the Yaoguang sword faction. You should understand how difficult it was to place this chess piece there. Once this chess piece is exposed, we can forget about placing another chess piece in this position in the future. Young Master Ba Yun seemed to be hesitant. He did not want this chess piece to be completely exposed. Master, you taught me that when I encounter something that I can't decide on, I should weigh it in my heart and use its absolute value to speak. This disciple believes that compared to the tripartite demon subduing sword formation and the emperor sword quest, this chess piece's value is not worth mentioning. Good. 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 This is my good, decisive, and quick-witted disciple. Don't worry. Before I spoke to you, I already ordered that chess piece to take action. They might have already suffered heavy casualties and are no longer able to fight. Quickly command the other members to leave the instance dungeon and prepare to start all over again. As expected, the older, the wiser. Young Master Ba Yun's questions were all to force Long Yu to wake up. Young Master Ba Yun paused for a moment before saying, "Disciple, ask yourself honestly. This time, you have indeed failed. You lost to that fellow, the military governor. However, you have the backing of the Great Ocean Waves Guild and countless backup plans. That gave you the chance to turn the tables. However, I hope that you will learn from this lesson. Think carefully about what it was that interfered with your judgment of the entire instance dungeon. I hope that this experience will cause you to change and become a brand new person. A brand new Long Yu in the game and a brand new Chen Lu in the real world. This is the last time I'll help you. From now on, you'll have to rely on yourself." After saying that, young Master Ba Yun completely hung up on sword leader Luo Ying. "Master." A sorrowful expression flashed across Long Yu's face. However, he immediately regained his decisiveness and ordered through the party channel, "All members, pay attention. Immediately find the nearest instance dungeon escape point. Leave the instance dungeon and regroup at the instance dungeon entrant. I repeat, immediately leave the instance dungeon and regroup at the instance dungeon entrance." "Yes, I understand. For the Great Ocean Waves Guild." For Ojin. In Guhan's instance dungeon, a person received the communication from sword leader Luo Ying. He looked around and carefully scanned his surroundings. After making sure that no one could see him, he quickly pulled out his famed sword and slashed at something that looked like a fuel tank beside him. He perfectly cut open a small hole. Precious jet fuel dripped down from the hole in the fuel tank. "Hurry, everyone get on the plane. The runway has been cleared." At the same time, someone shouted through the party channel, "Coming." The person who stabbed the fuel tank with his sword immediately responded. He pretended that nothing had happened and crawled out from under the plane. Chapter 207. The exit of a dungeon was a passageway arranged by the system for players to quickly escape from a dungeon. Normally, this passageway would be located near the main plot map, allowing players to escape from the dungeon as quickly as possible. For example, Parking Lot P2, Terminal T2, the Dimensional Altar, the Marauder off-road vehicle, and the hovercraft all had an exit. The exit of the hovercraft was under the seat at the back. Long Yu pushed the seat back forcefully, and an exit that looked like water appeared under the seat. Ignoring the shock of Artoria and the NPC swordsman, Long Yu jumped into the exit first, followed by Gentleman and Graceful Lady. Long Yu appeared in Yangjing Base City in a daze. Soon, Xue Leixing, Monian, and Ling Yun, who had been waiting at the second safety node, also exited the dungeon. Without saying a word, the six of them started running towards the teleportation point. They were prepared to teleport back to Jinling City, where the Great Wave Sect was stationed. Then, they would use the teleportation gate to teleport to the small teleportation point at Xianyang Airport. Along the way, Long Yu also found time to explain the ins and outs of the matter. Only then did everyone realize that they were wrong again. Fortunately, young Master Ba Yun, the stabilizing pillar of the sect, had already set up a secret plan. Otherwise, Kanglan Billows would have really fallen into the gutter and been ruthlessly slapped in the face this time. Long Yu's party rushed back to the entrance of the dungeon at Xianyang Airport in the shortest time possible. However, they found that they could not enter the dungeon for the time being. There was a cooldown period of 1 hour after exiting the dungeon. Within that hour, they could not enter the dungeon again. There were about 40 minutes left until the cooldown period. Let's rest in the tent, Long Yu sighed. Although he wanted to rush back into the dungeon immediately, there was no way to get rid of this 1 hour, unless he could bribe Bat. The atmosphere in the resting tent was very lively. It was a rare moment of rest. The rest of the team members took out their drinks, mahjong and other entertainment tools and began to play happily. From their point of view, this wave of attacks was in the bag. The members of Yaoguang's sword sect should have left the dungeon later than them. They would also re-enter the dungeon later than them. Not to mention, they would lose an important combat force. No matter how they looked at it, they were in the bag. Time passed by slowly. Soon, there were less than 5 minutes left before the cooldown of the instance dungeon ended. Long Yu raised his hand, slammed the table, and ordered, "Pack up your things and prepare to enter the instance dungeon." Yes. Everyone responded and then began to pack up their poker and mahjong. All channels broadcast. Ding dong. With the hard work of the elite swordbearers of the Yaoguang sword faction, military governor, wonderful Pen Lancang Jiang, Steel Meatball, Hong Yu, Yu Sikong, and Yu Siyu, they cleared the hidden dungeon, King Arthur's Betrayal, for the first time with an SS rank rating and obtained the title, King Arthur's Savior. All channels broadcast. Ding dong. The hidden dungeon, King Arthur's Betrayal, has been cleared by an SS rank. The entrance to the instance dungeon will be temporarily closed for 24 hours. After 24 hours, it will become a famed sword rank dungeon and will be open to all players. Players below famed sword rank can enter the instance dungeon through the entrance of the Xianyang City Airport ruins. Once again, let us thank the 6 King Arthur's Saviors for their dedication to the world. F***CK, what the hell is this? Did I hear it wrong? Monian dropped the mahjong tiles in his hands onto the table. He looked at his teammates and saw that they were all in a state of shock and disbelief. Especially Long Yu. His face was full of shock, anger, fear, hesitation, madness, confusion. All sorts of negative emotions could be seen on Long Yu's face. At the same time, the entire Sea Billow Sword Sect's chat channel began to explode. All sorts of messages poured down like a waterfall. Thousands of messages were refreshed every second. One could imagine that the entire Sea Billow Sword Sect was in an explosive state. "Leader, what should we do now?" Monian asked Long Yu, not knowing what to do. When he heard Monian's question, Long Yu raised his head. His eyes flashed with a murderous light. Monian jumped in fright. In the end, Long Yu did not say another word. His figure flickered, and he disappeared. Don't misunderstand. Long Yu had not teleported. He had logged off. What kind of person is this? You can't even command like this. You can't even compare to a newbie who has been in the game for less than 2 weeks. What the hell are you talking about? Monian cursed, then logged off. The rest of the team smiled bitterly. When they joined the clearers, they had never imagined that they would fail to clear the first clear of a dungeon for the first time in more than 20 years. This time, they were the scapegoats. When they thought of this, they lost interest in staying in the game. One by one, they followed Monian and logged off. Soon, there was no one left in the tent. An hour and a half later, under Guhan's forceful command, Steel Centipede drove the Marauder to the location on the map. It was a vast, empty plain. The place used to be a large piece of farmland. After more than 700 years of being empty, the farmland had degenerated back to its original state, a plain. However, what was surprising was that there was actually a wooden windmill standing in the middle of this plain. The blades of the windmill could actually move along with the wind. This was a very unscientific thing. After being exposed to the wind and rain for so many years, no matter how strong the wood was, it should have decayed to the point where it couldn't support the weight of the windmill's blades and collapsed. Even if the material used for the windmill was very solid, the bearing part of the wheel blades could not be rotated again. This was completely contrary to the normal law of development. This place looks familiar. I think I've seen it somewhere before. Magic Pen looked at the place. He felt as if he had seen this place before. I also feel like I've seen this place before, but I can't remember, Steel Centipede added. After hearing Steel Centipede and Magic Pen's words, even the Yu siblings and Hong Yu felt as if they had seen this place before. There's a very famous portrait of this scene. Guhan quickly ran towards the windmill. As he ran, he explained, "Let me give you a hint. That is a portrait of the man and Jendi." When Guhan mentioned the man and Jendi's name, everyone instantly remembered where they had seen this scene. The swordbearers' service centers in every city would hang the portraits of all the sword emperors in the past 1,000 years. In fact, wasn't the background of the portraits of the people and the sword emperors just a plain and a lonely windmill standing on the plain? The portraits of each Jendi hung in the swordbearers' service center for future generations to admire were very particular. Every strand of hair, every color, and every scene had to be carefully selected and paid attention to. Generally speaking, Jendi's portraits were drawn from their most well-known deeds. For example, Kanzu's background was the entire Yangjing base city, symbolizing the Yangjing city that Kanzu founded. Jendi's background was 8 huge heads, symbolizing his great achievement of killing one of the strongest desolate-level Yuan Ku, the Yamata no serpent. As for the man and Jendi, Jendi was very low-key among all the Jendi, or rather, the very irresponsible Jendi. In his life, he had not even killed a desolate-level Yuan Ku, and he had only killed 200-level Yuan Ku. Human beings are very realistic. If you protect our safety and make great contributions, we will sing and praise your great story. On the contrary, it is difficult for people to even remember your name. Among all the Jendi since ancient times, the man and Jendi could be regarded as the least popular Jendi apart from Mingyuan Jendi. Not many people knew about his life, so at this time, Magic Pen and the others had no idea why they chose this place to paint the portrait of the man and Jendi. The man and Jendi has only killed 200-level Yuan Ku in his life. In fact, the most powerful 100-level Yuan Ku should be the immortal Dugu Batian. This is the battlefield of the man and Jendi and Dugu Batian. 30 years after the instance, the man and Jendi and Dugu Batian had a decisive battle here. In the end, everything within a radius of 100 kilometers turned into powder. Guhan explained. So, Dugu Batian died here. When everyone heard the name Dugu Batian, they couldn't help but sigh. Although Dugu Batian was Yuan Ku, his popularity was far greater than that of the man who killed him and Jendi. Dugu Batian belonged to the Chidian Book League. Originally, he lived in harmony with humans. He never killed humans, nor did he destroy cities. He just liked to find strong opponents to fight with. Even if he defeated his opponent, he never killed them. Therefore, Dugu Baitian's reputation among humans wasn't bad. Later, the man and Jendi became Jendi. Dugu Batian also came to find the man to fight with Jendi. However, during the fight, for some reason, Dugu Batian suddenly wanted to kill the man and Jendi. Both sides changed from a fight to a life-and-death fight. In the end, the man and Jendi were superior and killed Dugu Batian. The plain in front of them was the place where they fought. Military governor, I still don't understand. Even if the man, Jendi, and Dugu Batian fought here 30 years later, what does it have to do with us escaping from the Nazi king? What does it help? The man and Jendi can't suddenly appear and save us, right? Steel Centipede was still confused. Steel Centipede, touch here. Guhan touched the wooden wall of the windmill and called Steel Centipede over to touch it as well. Steel Centipede felt something was wrong. His eyebrows and nose squeezed together as he said in surprise, "This is not wood, this is steel." Chapter 208. The windmill in front of Guhan and the others was not a wooden windmill. Instead, it was a windmill built entirely out of steel. However, it had been painted by an expert to look like a wooden windmill. Moreover, the steel used to build the windmill was no ordinary steel. It was a high-grade special steel that was resistant to corrosion and rust. Otherwise, it would not have been able to maintain its rotation for 700 years. The question was, Why did a small windmill here need steel, and a special steel at that? Was it because the original owner of this field had too much money to spend? Guhan led everyone into the windmill. He patted Magic Pen on the shoulder and smiled. Please ask Chengying to cut open the steel plate under our feet. Chengying is the sharpest and the best material we have here. I'll have to trouble her. Okay. Wondrous Pen nodded and released Chengying. Chengying didn't say anything and drew a circle on the ground. A circular hole instantly appeared on the ground, and a circular steel plate that was at least 50 centimeters thick fell into it. It fell for a full 3 to 4 seconds before the loud sound of it hitting the ground could be heard. Judging from the time, there was at least a large space that was more than 60 meters deep under Ji Yuhan's feet. Let's go down. After saying that, Guhan was the first to jump into the hole. What else could the others say? They could only follow behind Guhan and jump down. Fortunately, they were holding on to their sword maidens. Otherwise, a normal person would have been smashed into meat paste after jumping from a height of 60 meters. System notification. Player Military Governor, your party has triggered the hidden map, XXX base. Original Quest 7 has failed. Hidden Quest, 1 step to victory is in effect. Please lead your party directly back to Yangjing Base City. We triggered the hidden map just like that. How cool. Steel Centipede exclaimed, but no one paid attention to him. The space under the windmill had been sealed for an unknown period of time. The entire space was filled with a strange smell. It was like the smell of a 1,000-year-old tomb. Magic Pen and the others turned on their flashlights and discovered that they were in a very advanced and sci-fi underground facility. The 4 walls were filled with various warnings and confidential words. It felt like they had arrived at a very underground base. Artoria, how long will it take for the Nazi king to get here? Guhan asked Artoria, who was the last to jump down. About 15 minutes. Artoria frowned. Why did we come here? What we need to do is to escape to a safe zone controlled by you humans, not wait for death in this underground cage. This isn't an underground prison. This is one of the most secretive research and nuclear bases of the Chinese government before the Great Calamity. There are over 100 nuclear bombs and rockets here, as well as 3 brand new fighter jets that are currently being developed. The most elite Dark Blade Special Forces are stationed here all year round to protect this place. This isn't some underground prison, but an out-and-out safe fortress. Other than the people in the base, there are less than 100 people in China who know about the existence of this base. Guhan explained. This place is so secretive. How did you know about it, Military Governor? Steel Centipede asked, puzzled. Back then, the humans, Jendi, and Dugu Batian fought here, exposing this base. However, this base was basically destroyed by the humans, Jendi, and Dugu Batian's various battles. Fortunately, a mainframe that preserved the entire base's information was not destroyed, so later generations were able to restore the entire building structure of the base and the various secrets inside. Through some special channels, I found all the information about this base, but I wasn't sure if Bat was completely present in the game and the dungeon world. So after the meeting with you yesterday, I entered the dungeon again and purposely came here. As a result, I found that the dungeon world had indeed completely reproduced this base. I have to admit that Bat is really a great intelligent program. Although I don't understand what you are talking about, I have to tell you that your conversation just now has already wasted 3 minutes. We only have 12 minutes left. No matter how strong the defense of this base is, it is impossible to stop the attack of the Nazi King's Third Reich. Artoria saw these humans constantly talking about irrelevant things and could not help but urge them. It's okay, we have enough time. Guhan patted Artoria's shoulder with an expression that said, don't worry about me. According to the information, this base is experimenting with 3 top-secret military aircraft, one of which is an official top-secret design, the aerial gunship. Simply put, the aerial gunship is a heavy fighter aircraft equipped with rapid-fire cannons and howitzers. It can use the heavy artillery on the side of the fuselage to launch a sustained artillery suppression on the enemy's front position for a long time. Because the cannons are fired in the air, They can fire at the blind spots of the enemy's cannons from various angles that are impossible for traditional cannons. In a situation where our side has obtained air supremacy, the aerial gunship can deal the most lethal artillery fire to the enemy. Before the apocalypse, only the United States was equipped with the mature aerial gunship AC-130. Therefore, the Huaxia Empire used the AC-130 as a blueprint and began to develop its own aerial gunship, codenamed Vanguard. When the apocalypse happened, the research was nearing its end, and even the prototype had been manufactured. All that was left was to soar into the sky for test flight. Our target is this Vanguard aerial gunship. When I came to check yesterday, I discovered that thanks to the good sealed environment of this underground base, this Vanguard aerial gunship is very well protected. The fuel tank is even full. As long as it is activated, it can soar into the sky. This is the reason why I brought you all here. With the Vanguard aerial gunship's speed of 450 km per hour, we can definitely escape the pursuit of the Nazi king and reach the next safe point. Everyone was stunned when they heard Guhan's words. This dungeon could be played like this. He even made an aerial gunship. What was in this military governor's head? He could even think of such a place and such a thing, and then use it in a dungeon raid. Comrade military governor, please allow us to kneel to you. All right, stop daydreaming. There's not much time left. We have to hurry to the launch pad where the Vanguard aerial gunship is, Guhan urged. But military governor, it's pitch black here, and there are all sorts of twists and turns everywhere. It's like a maze. By the time we reach the launch pad in the dark, the Nazi king will probably be here. Steel Centipede looked at the dense maze of tunnels and felt a headache coming on. Who said you could walk through it? Guhan pulled out his King-Yu sword and walked to the side of a wall. With a forceful swing, Guhan instantly cut a hole in the wall that was made of special alloy that was 10 centimeters thick. We'll take the shortcut. After saying that, Guhan took the lead and entered the next room. The others exchanged glances. Their brains still couldn't keep up with the military governors. They were still thinking about how to get out of the maze, but the other party had already pushed down the walls of the maze and rushed to the exit. As Guhan had already come here before, everything went smoothly. Guhan cut through 7 walls and finally reached the room where the Vanguard aerial gunship was stored. A 30-meter-long, 12-meter-tall behemoth appeared in front of everyone. This was a Real fighter plane. Steel Centipede couldn't help but rub his palms when he saw the plane. He couldn't wait to pilot it. By the way, who's the pilot of this plane? Steel Centipede suddenly thought of something. He could drive an off-road vehicle, but that didn't mean he could fly a plane, and a battle-grade one at that. Who's the pilot of this plane? Hey, do any of you know how to fly a plane? Steel Centipede asked Magic Pen and the others. In the end, the others exchanged glances. They were all sword wielders. Nowadays, planes and hovercrafts were all fully piloted. Who would pilot an antique from 1,000 years ago? What are you thinking about? I know how to fly this thing. Gu-Han patted the Steel Centipede's head and said, I've studied the pilot manual of this Vanguard yesterday, and I've successfully flown it into the sky. Don't worry. Artoria, how much longer until the Nazi king arrives? For Guhan, time was money. 7 more minutes. I can already smell the unpleasant smell of the Nazi king. 7 more minutes. Guhan pondered for a moment. Everyone, follow me. Clear all the junk around us, then cut open the iron door of the launch port and clear the space for the plane to taxi. We only have 7 minutes. Hurry, hurry, hurry. When Guhan said the word hurry 3 times in a row, the others felt as if a dog was biting their butts. They began to frantically clear all kinds of obstacles blocking the plane's taxi. Whether they could escape from the Nazi king's clutches and win this competition depended on these 7 minutes. Just as his teammates, including Artoria, were frantically clearing the runway, a figure suddenly sneaked back to the side of the plane. Yes, I understand. 4 brilliant billows. 4 Ogen. He lowered his head and carefully scanned his surroundings. After making sure that no one could see him, he quickly pulled out his famed blade and stabbed at something that looked like a fuel tank beside him. He perfectly cut open a small hole, Precious jet fuel dripped down from the hole in the fuel tank. Hurry, everyone get on the plane. The plane is about to take off. At the same time, Guhan shouted in the guild channel. Coming. The person who stabbed the fuel tank with his sword immediately responded. He pretended as if nothing had happened and crawled out from under the plane. As a result, when this person got out from under the plane, he saw Ji Yuhan's smiling face looking at him. Military governor, let's get on the plane. The person pretended as if nothing had happened and calmly prepared to board the plane. Wait. Guhan pressed down on the person's shoulder. Are you going to keep pretending? What are you talking about? I don't understand what you are talking about. The person took a step back, but was blocked by another person. You bumped into me. A female voice rang out. Hongyu's figure gradually appeared out of thin air. Hongyu had actually maintained her invisible state and stayed there. This meant that she had seen the entire process. Phew. I knew that I would be discovered sooner or later. You put a lot of pressure on me. Military governor, you are the only person I will respect in this life. P.S. You are the ones who know who the spy is. Chapter 209. Why? Why are you the spy? Hongyu looked at the person in front of her. She was in a state of confusion. When Guhan told her that there was a spy in the team and asked her to use her invisibility ability to secretly observe them, Hongyu did not believe it. She felt that there was no spy in the team. Even if there was, it could not be the person in front of her. But the truth told Hongyu that the spy was the one in front of her. Military governor, what are you doing? Why are you pointing the tip of your sword at Wondrous Pen? At this time, the Yu siblings, Gunben, and Artoria had also returned to the side of the plane. They saw the tip of Guhan's sword pointed at Wondrous Pen's throat. That's right, this spy was Wondrous Pen. He was Wondrous Pen, the super elder who had followed Yaoguang Sword faction since its founding and had fought alongside Yaoguang Sword faction. This man was the same age as Yaoguang Sword faction when they were 15 years old, and he had watched the growth of Yaoguang Sword faction almost single-handedly. This man was the spy. He's a spy. Guhan said coldly, he just cut a hole in the plane's fuel tank. In less than 10 minutes, all the aviation fuel in the entire fuel tank will be lost. At that time, we, who are in the sky, can only end up falling with the plane. Do you think he's a spy? No. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Gunben could not believe what Guhan said. Because in the team, Gunben respected Wondrous Pen the most. When Gunben was still a trash swordbearer, it was Wondrous Pen who discovered Gunben's potential and introduced him to Yaoguang Sword faction. Gunben was able to have a Londet because Wondrous Pen had led a team to help him farm for 3 whole months before he was able to farm 10 tokens. For Gunben, Wondrous Pen was not only his friend, but also his elder and teacher. Gunben could not believe that Wondrous Pen was actually a spy. Military governor, are you mistaken? How could Magic Pen Boss be a spy? This is impossible. The Yu siblings also chimed in. Although they didn't have such deep feelings for Wonderful Brush like Steelworm, they had seen everything that Wonderful Brush had done for the Yaoguang Sword sect. They could not believe that the man who had racked his brains for the rise of Yaoguang Sword sect was a spy. That's right. Miaobi is definitely not a spy. It's impossible. Steel Centipede roared. Miaobi is the deputy sect leader of our Yaoguang Sword sect. Deputy sect leader, his position was below tens of thousands of people. Even if he was originally a spy, sitting in his current position, it was impossible for him to be a spy. What could Kanglan Buotao give him? The vice leader of the Great Waves of Azure Waves. How is this possible? By the way, military governor, you said that Wonderful Brush is a spy. This is only your side of the story. Apart from that, do you have any evidence to prove it? Steel Centipede gritted his teeth and said, I understand. You are the spy. You are the spy who wants to frame Deputy Sect Leader Wonderful Brush. You, an outsider, are the most likely spy. Shut up, Steel Centipede. I saw what Wonderful Brush did with my own eyes. Military governor did not lie. I saw Wonderful Brush cut open our fuel tank with my own eyes. I saw it with my own eyes. Hong Yu retorted in a stern voice. Then even you are a spy. You are also a spy. You and this military governor are together. Both of you are spies. Steel Centipede was about to go crazy. Enough. Look at this. Wake up. Hong Yu sneered. She tapped on her personal terminal, and a video appeared in the air. This video was none other than the video of Wonderful Brush destroying the fuel tank. Seeing this video, Steel Centipede felt as if all the bones in his body had been pulled out. He fell limply to the ground. With such evidence in front of him, Steel Centipede had no choice but to believe it. There is no need to defend me, Steel Centipede. I am indeed a spy. Wonderful Brush raised his head and looked at the dark roof. He let out a long sigh of relief. It has been 17 years. In the blink of an eye, I have played the role of a spy for 17 years. Today, I can finally be myself again. During these 17 years, I almost thought that I was the vice leader of the Yaoguang sword faction, the leader inside, and Yaoguang's best friend. If it weren't for this dungeon raid, I might have continued playing the role for another 17 years, 34 years. I might even have to play the role until I die. So I want to thank you, military governor. You are the one who ended my painful days. I finally don't have to live such a painful and tangled life anymore. Thank you, military governor. I really thank you. I don't hate you at all for exposing me. You are the one who freed me. Don't thank me. Thank you for your acting. Sometimes, your acting is really bad, especially when you are panicking. You reveal too many flaws. Guhan hugged his arms. The world goes on, and the spirits of heroes never scatter. I can't believe I have witnessed yet another pitiful betrayal. Artoria walked over slowly. Her expression was very ugly. In history, she, King Arthur, was betrayed by the man and woman she loved and sank to the bottom of the Spirit Lake. Therefore, Artoria had an extremely painful memory of betrayal. Do you need me to kill him? Military governor. Artoria also drew her sword of the lake. Although Artoria was no match for the Nazi king, she was more than enough to deal with a famed sword-level wondrous pen. Not to mention, the Yao siblings, who were ranked second in the famed sword level, were supporting her from the side. You will have to ask Wondrous Pen yourself. Wondrous Pen, do you still want to fight us to buy time for the leaders behind you? Guhan asked as he looked into Wondrous Pen's eyes. No, I am not interested. Wondrous Pen shook his head. I have already destroyed the plane's fuel tank. My mission is complete. I don't want to fight my former friends anymore, especially Steel Centipede. I really don't want to fight you, and I won't fight you. Okay, I believe you. Guhan retracted his sword that was pressed against Wondrous Pen's throat. Military governor, he is very dangerous. There is a powerful force in his body. Once he decides to fight us, we will definitely delay him for a long time. The Nazi king will arrive in less than a minute, Artoria tried to persuade Guhan. You are wrong, Miss Artoria. The Nazi king will not arrive in less than a minute. He is already above us now. Impossible, my senses are not bad. Before Artoria could finish her sentence, the ground above the base trembled violently. The entire underground base was shaken by the tremor. Artoria felt her face burning, as if she had been slapped. The special metal here has the ability to block out senses. Although it cannot completely block out your senses of the Nazi king, it is normal for you to make a wrong judgment, Guhan explained. Artoria. King Arthur. Night King. I know you are nearby. Come out, let's fight again. Above him, the Nazi king's muffled voice traveled down to the ground. It seems like the isolation here has not only blocked your senses, Artoria, but it has also made it difficult for the Nazi king to sense you. That's why he can only sense that you're nearby, but he can't sense that you're right under his feet, Ji Yuhan said. But he will find out sooner or later. His sense of smell is very sensitive. This base can't buy us too much time. We have to start this plane immediately and escape from this base. Otherwise, we will all die here. Artoria's expression became anxious. But military governor, I have already destroyed the fuel tank of this plane. You will fall from the sky in less than 10 minutes. Do you have a way to solve this problem? Wondrous Pen's words sounded like he was mocking Guhan, but in fact, he had no intention of mocking him. Not at all. He just wanted to know if this man whom he admired could come up with a way to turn the situation around at this almost desperate moment. He estimated that even the old guy who put him in would be helpless in the face of such a situation. Military Governor, can we think of a way to weld this mailbox together? I see that there is electric welding equipment here. Maybe we can weld the gap, Hong Yu suggested. It's no use. These welding rods can't be used anymore. Even if they can be used, it's impossible to weld such a gap with less than 10 years of experience. Rashly welding will only cause more damage to the fuel tank. Then Hong Yu seemed to have thought of something, but at that moment, the ground shook violently again. Then, they heard the Nazi king shouting, "Arthur, I know where you are. Why are you hiding underground like an English mouse? Why are you trembling under the bombardment of the Nazis like your useless junior, Churchill? Arthur, come out right now." Boom. It seemed that the Nazi king had blasted the ground. The soil on the surface of the ground had probably been blasted away, and the steel shell of the underground base was exposed to the Nazi king. It seems like there's no other way. Artoria pulled out her sword of the lake and looked up with determination. You guys run first. I'll stall the Nazi king. You guys are here to save me. Although I can't defeat him with my strength, I can still stall him for a few minutes. You guys take the opportunity to escape. We'll meet again if fate allows it. With that, Artoria was about to fly out from the entrance and fight the Nazi king to the death. What are you doing? I won't leave you alone. Guhan grabbed Artoria's smooth, white hand. Artoria was stunned, but she didn't break free from Guhan's grasp. Because Guhan continued, "When did I say that there's no way to escape? You still have a way to escape." Artoria and everyone else, including Magic Pen, were stunned. In such a desperate situation, Guhan still had a way to escape. Of course I have a way. Otherwise, I wouldn't have watched Magic Pen destroy the fuel tank of this plane. Guhan's grip on Artoria's hand tightened. Actually, I didn't intend to fly this plane. Flying a plane is not as simple as welding. I actually prepared another means of transportation. Chapter 210. Boom. There was another loud noise, and the underground base shook violently. Things kept falling from the lamps overhead. Not good. The Nazi king has destroyed part of the base in the north. It won't be long before we reach the south. We have to go. Guhan pulled Artoria's hand and ran to the side of a wall. He quickly cut open the wall and was the first to enter the hole. Go, follow me. Guhan shouted, and the rest of the people quickly followed, leaving only Pen and Steel Centipede standing in the same place. Pen, why aren't you leaving? It'll be too late if you don't leave now. Pen laughed. Big brother Magic Brush, come with me. Gunpen looked at the Magic Pen with a very serious expression. I can see that the Admiral won't make things difficult for you. You should leave with us. I can't go. I don't want to go. Pen shook his head. Go, Pen. I thank you for your kindness. It's not in vain that I picked up a piece of unpolished jade for you. Go, don't worry about me. No, you're just waiting for death if you stay here. I won't let you stay here alone, Steel Centipede said sadly. He felt like he was the male lead in a sad TV series. No, Pen, I won't let you die alone. If we're going to die, we'll die here together. Did you watch a TV series? Pen kicked Pen. Get lost. This is a game. I won't be able to log in for 3 days at most. It won't take my life. Get lost. Pen suddenly felt very embarrassed. Yes, this is a game. No one will die. Why should I be sad? Pen knew that Pen, who had been seen through, had no face to escape. Steel Centipede sighed and went back into the cave. What a pity. I wonder what the military governor will do to escape. It's really a pity. If it wasn't for the fact that it would be difficult to explain to Old Man Yakumo after coming out of the dungeon unscathed, I'd like to see what the military governor is up to. Military governor, what are we doing here? There are no planes here. Steel Centipede was the last to arrive at Guhan's room. He found himself in a room filled with all kinds of instruments. One of the walls was made of a large piece of transparent glass. It was pitch black outside the glass, and nothing could be seen. That was why Steel Centipede felt strange. He did not understand why the military governor had brought him here. There were no planes here, and there was no runway for planes to take off and land on. Who told you that I'm going to give you a plane ride? Guhan pushed one of the handles of the device, and the whole device lit up. Wartime backup power has been activated. Silo function has been activated. Power remaining at 10%. Continuous operation time will not exceed 10 minutes. A mechanical female voice rang out in the room, followed by a flash of light. The lighting in the room was switched on, followed by the lighting outside the window. When Steel Centipede saw the scene outside the window, she was shocked. Outside the window was a huge silo. A large missile with a skull drawn on it and the words "Beware of radiation. Do not approach" was inserted in the center of this silo. Even though 700 years had passed, it was still shining brightly, as if it could be launched at any time. This is a nuclear bomb. Steel Centipede swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Steel Centipede had heard of the legend of nuclear bombs. On the 10th day after the apocalypse, humans, who had been defeated to the point where they could no longer retreat, tried to kill Yuan Ku with a nuclear bomb. However, Yuan Ku hid between the dimensional gaps, and the nuclear bomb did not cause any damage to Yuan Ku. It did not even kill the weakest rat-level Yuan Ku. Instead, it destroyed parts of the Earth and turned them into no man's land. However, the legend of the nuclear bomb was completely preserved. Steel Centipede was also a big fan of nuclear bombs. Steel Centipede also yearned for this most powerful firecracker in the world. He had been looking for a chance to see what a nuclear bomb looked like, but he never had the chance. He did not expect to see it today under such circumstances. I say, military governor, don't tell me you want us to go back in this. Steel Centipede swallowed another mouthful of saliva. Why not? The launch speed is 30 meters per second, and the flight speed is 6,000 meters per second. As long as we sit in this, it will only take us 200 seconds to get from here to Beijing. Have you heard of a saying from before the apocalypse? Guhan kept inputting all kinds of data into the instrument. As he typed, he laughed and joked, as the saying goes, Dongfeng Express, mission accomplished. Rumble. Another series of loud collapses and explosions sounded. Judging from the direction of the sound, it was coming from the place where the aerial gunship had stopped. It seemed that the Nazi king had advanced there. Beep beep beep. Warning. Warning. The north area has been destroyed. The south area is about to be attacked. All control systems have been cut off. Switching to manual control. The computer sounded a series of alarms. It seemed that the north area was completely destroyed. Ji Han didn't say anything, but the speed of his input increased. Military governor, what are you typing into the computer? Hongyu saw Guhan typing so fast that after images could be seen. She could not help but be curious. What the hell is this guy typing? Hacking the entire launch system security system, as well as setting the launch time, launch destination coordinates, and other data. Guhan replied. Guhan planned to use Dongfeng Express, which was loaded with nuclear weapons. Just hacking the security system to protect the launch system from being hacked by others would be a huge amount of work. Military governor, I didn't expect you to be a hacker. Hongyu's eyes were sparkling. This man was so powerful, and he was actually a hacker. He was too talented. No, I'm not a hacker. I don't even know the most basic C language. Guhan quickly replied. But it's fine as long as someone knows it. When I came yesterday, I asked Yaoguang to ask a reliable hacker to demonstrate the entire operation process. I just need to remember the process. After hearing Guhan's words, Hongyu's eyes lit up. If what Guhan said was true, then he had only watched the hacker's demonstration a few times, and he was able to remember every operation step and input letter. This kind of memory ability was much better than any hacker. System notification. Your party member, player Magic Pen, Lansang River has died and left the dungeon. At this time, such a notification suddenly appeared in the party channel. Magic Pen had actually died. It seems that the Nazi king has reached the aerial gunship. Yu Xizong's expression changed greatly. It's not far from here. Military governor, how long will it take for you to complete the input? Soon, soon. Guhan said loudly. Hong Yu, break the glass window for me, quickly. Yes. After hearing Guhan's order, Hong Yu did not say anything else and smashed the glass wall in front of her into pieces. The moment the glass wall was smashed, Guhan threw the Yu King sword in his hand toward Dongfeng Express's warhead, and it was inserted into the warhead. Wow, big brother, this is a nuclear warhead. If you throw it in the wrong place and trigger the nuclear warhead, we're dead. Seeing the Yu King sword inserted into the warhead, Steel Centipede was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. All of you listen, cut open the 1 square meter iron plate on the warhead with my sword as the circular position. There's a small space there that people can squeeze in. All of you hide in that space, quickly. Guhan ordered loudly. Oh my god, we're really going to take Dongfeng Express. Steel Centipede screamed and was the first to rush out. F***CK, to be able to ride a nuclear warhead around, even if I died, it would be worth it. What was there to be afraid of? Under Steel Centipede's charge, the huge nuclear warhead was cut open. Just as Guhan had said, there was a space inside. However, this space was very small, only about 100 million cubic meters. It was quite cramped to fit 6 people in such a small space. Steel Centipede, the Yu siblings, Hong Yu, and Artoria had spent a lot of effort to squeeze into this space. Be careful, Steel Centipede, there are 3 hydrogen warheads with a yield of 1 million kilograms next to you, Guhan hurriedly reminded, worried that Steel Centipede would do something unpredictable inside the warhead. Oh my god! 1 million kilograms! Steel Centipede was so excited that he was about to explode. To be able to ride Dongfeng Express with 3 hydrogen warheads was 100 times, 10,000 times more intense than any orgasm. Artoria, King Arthur, and the rest of you, I've found you. At this moment, the wall of the control room was smashed, and a Nazi in the form of a single mecha walked in. At this time, Guhan was still inputting control commands into the computer. Heh! You're the only lowly scum. Where's Artoria? The Nazi was not in a hurry to attack Guhan. Instead, he looked at his surroundings with interest and the Dongfeng Express that was in a firing state. Is this the final product of the Axis plan? What a beautiful weapon! The moment the Nazi saw the Dongfeng Express nuclear weapon, he fell into a state of obsession and admiration. The Axis plan was Nazi Germany's own nuclear weapons program. If this program had succeeded before Germany was destroyed, then Germany would have won another complete victory. The Nazi, who had reappeared in this world, deeply believed in this. It's beautiful, it's beautiful. The Nazi looked at the nuclear warhead and was intoxicated. He did not even care about the scum Guhan. I should have it, if only I had it. Then I'll give it to you. Guhan tapped the last button on the computer keyboard, then turned around and smiled at the Nazi. At this time, Guhan noticed that the Nazi's mecha was holding a long sword. This sword was none other than Magic Pen's Chengying sword. This was the trophy of the Nazi king. Hitler liked this trophy very much. Dongfeng Express, mission accomplish. 10 seconds until launch. 9 seconds. 8 seconds. Guhan sneered. He jumped up from the crack in the glass wall and onto the warhead. 7 seconds. 6 seconds. 5 seconds. It's going to launch. This is a wonderful thing. It's so good to see it launch with my own eyes. The Nazi Hitler became even more obsessed. 4 seconds. 3 seconds. At the last moment, Gu Han successfully squeezed into that space. Then, he ordered Steel Centipede to take out his giant sword, a londate, and stuck it at the entrance of the hole. This was like a railing, protecting Gu Han's body that was closest to the hole, so that he wouldn't fall out of the hole when the sword was fired. 2 seconds. 1 second. Express launch, please sign. After a loud bang, a golden flame ignited. The Dongfeng Express rose from the ground and flew straight into the sky. Riding a nuclear warhead back to Yangjing was not something that would be unknown in the future, but it was at least unprecedented. Guhan and the others had become the first humans in history to use a nuclear warhead as a means of transportation. Congratulations! You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.